This video is sponsored by War Thunder, but more on that later. The Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is the highest damage build I've ever seen in Baldur's Gate 3 because of Patch 8's changes to Shadowblade and the addition of Booming Blade to the game. The incredible damage output of a Shadowblade Eldritch Knight comes from the extremely high number of attacks per turn thanks to improved extra attack, War Magic, and perfectly balanced strike. War Magic grants an extra weapon attack after casting a cantrip, which triggers off Booming Blade, and improved extra attack gives us 3 weapon attacks per action. And thanks to Resonance Stone, all our damage is doubled. Besides the jaw-dropping number of attacks, the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight also brings utility to your party in the form of Longstrider, Featherfall, Enhanced Leap, Knock, See Invisibility, Detect Thoughts, and so much more. To get started, choose Gale at level 1. Gale is the best choice for this build because he's the only character who is able to be an Eldritch Knight and still wield an upcasted Shadowblade. This is because in Act 2, Gale can absorb the Shadow Weave from a slain Thorm to gain a permanent level 3 Shadow spell slot. This spell slot can be used to upcast Shadowblade, making it deal 3d4 psychic damage instead of 2d4. Since Eldritch Knights never unlock a level 3 spell slot, this would be otherwise impossible. Gale origin characters also gain the Ring of Evasion from Tara during a long rest, which is a nice bonus. Since you can't make Gale a fighter from the very start, head to Withers in the Dank Crypt, and then head to camp and change your class to fighter. From levels 1 through 9, we'll be building Gale as a typical two-handed Eldritch Knight fighter. For fighting style, we want Great Weapon Fighting. Great Weapon Fighting is a passive feature that activates when you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die for an attack with a two-handed melee weapon. That die is re-rolled once. You can roll with the default stats just fine, but if you want to min-max, feel free to dump strength and max out intelligence and drink an elixir of Hill Giant Strength each long rest. We want intelligence because intelligence is our spell casting ability modifier as an Eldritch Knight once we choose that subclass. At level 2, we'll unlock Action Surge. Action Surge immediately gives us an extra action to use this turn. This is a powerful class action that becomes more and more powerful as we unlock extra attack and improved extra attack. Since it refreshes on short rest, don't be afraid to use this when you are up against a lot of enemies or are up against a tough encounter. Then at level 3, choose Eldritch Knight as your subclass. Eldritch Knights are warriors of spell and sword, weaving incantations that supplement their extensive martial expertise. You gain 2 cantrips and 3 spells along with a spell slot and weapon bond. Weapon bond is actually really great, making it so your weapon can't be knocked out of your hand. For your cantrips, you'll want Booming Blade, which we'll be using all the time in combat. Booming Blade strikes with your weapon, afflicting your foe with a resonance that hurts them for 1d8 thunder damage when they move. Since this is a cantrip, it works perfectly with Eldritch Knight's War Magic, granting us an extra attack after casting a cantrip, which we unlock at level 7. The other cantrip you need is Friends. Since we chose Origin Gale, this is our dialogue character and we want to succeed our charisma checks, and Friends gives us advantage on those checks. For your spells, you'll want Shield. You can use this spell as a reaction to increase your armor class by 5 and take no damage from Magic Missile. This is one of my favorite spells and makes you much more difficult to hit. The other spell I like a lot is Protection from Evil and Good. Protection from Evil and Good prevents possession and fear from all creature types while you have it on, not just the listed creature types, making you simply immune to possession and fear. The spell lists aberrations, celestials, fae, fiends, and undead as the types of creatures that you cannot be charmed, frightened, or possessed by, but turns out you're just giving yourself immunity to those conditions against all creature types. The spell is bugged though, however, and does not apply immunity to charmed against any creature types, but you are immune to frightened and possessioned, so it is incredible. For your expanded spell, choose either Longstrider, Featherfall, Enhanced Leap, Fog Cloud, or Disguise Self, depending on your party's needs. I would choose Longstrider if you don't already have it in your party. At level 4, you'll unlock a new spell and your first feat. Any spell is fine, we'll probably not be using it very often anyway, but more importantly, choose Great Weapon Master for your feat. This will add plus 10 to your damage rolls at the cost of minus 5 to your attack roll. You'll also gain a bonus action attack the same turn you slay an enemy or land a critical hit. When it comes to using this feat effectively, make sure to toggle it off when your chance to hit drops below around 70% and toggle it back on when your chance to hit's really high. Gloves of the Growling Underdog help a lot with landing attacks since you gain advantage on melee attack rolls while surrounded by 2 or more foes. To get the most value from these gloves, you'll want to also toggle on non-lethal attacks. This way, when you slay an enemy, you will also keep advantage since they aren't really dead. Svartalbee's Wound Seeker is another weapon that will help you land attacks since it grants a 1d4 bonus to your attack rolls against wounded enemies. If you have a Cleric, have them use Guiding Bolt, Bless, and so on. And at level 5, you'll get a huge huge power spike with extra attack. You can make an additional free extra attack after making a weapon attack. This makes each action we spend by making a weapon attack even stronger by granting us a total of 2 weapon attacks per action. At level 6, we unlock our second feat. I would choose Savage Attacker. This feat allows us to roll our damage dice twice and use the highest result when making melee weapon attacks. This feat is stronger than you might think because it also re-rolls your damage riders. Not only that, but it also stacks with great weapon fighting, re-rolling your die once if you roll a 1 or 2, and then one more time for each roll, and then using the highest result. This feat basically is giving you advantage on your damage rolls. And at level 7, we'll be getting yet another major power spike. We gain War Magic. You have honed your body and magic for war. After you cast a cantrip, you can make a weapon attack using a bonus action. Since we'll be using Booming Blade each turn to attack, each turn we can use our bonus action to make a weapon attack now. This is a huge improvement, and our Eldritch Knight can now make 3 attacks per turn at a minimum. We can also learn 2 more spells. I chose Gust of Wind and Darkness. Gust of Wind could be situationally helpful to reposition the battlefield or get rid of Cloud Kill or other problematic clouds, and Darkness can be helpful to provide cover for crime. And next up is a message from this video's sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the ultimate vehicle combat game, offering an unparalleled experience across tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships, and it's completely free to play on PC, consoles, and mobile. Take command of over 2,500 vehicles from 10 major nations, spanning from early 20th century biplanes and armored cars to modern fighter jets and battle tanks. And the new mobile version of War Thunder is now available on iOS and Android, so you can take the action with you wherever you are. It offers easy-to-use controls, stunning graphics, and the same intense multiplayer battles you know and love, featuring dynamic ground and sea combat with air support. War Thunder features fast-paced, realistic battles where meticulously detailed vehicles, stunning graphics, and immersive sound effects put you in control of the most advanced war machines. One thing I personally really like about War Thunder is how intuitive and easy it is to learn and get started. Without playing any tutorials, I just jumped in the game and was able to start taking down enemies via aerial combat, which I recommend trying out, and I also really liked how the sound effects were really immersive. There's over 95 million players worldwide for you to join in on thrilling PvP action with and explore an expansive world of military history. With a vast array of high-quality content to uncover, War Thunder is the perfect game for history buffs and combat enthusiasts alike. So start playing War Thunder for free today on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile. Use my links in the pinned comment or video description to sign up. New players, as well as those who haven't played in the last 6 months, will get a massive bonus pack for PC and consoles. The pack includes several premium vehicles, the exclusive Eagle of Valor vehicle decal, 100,000 Silver Lions, 7 days of premium account access, and much more. This offer is available for a limited time, so don't wait, click the link now. At level 8, we gain access to some great spells, learn Misty Step, and replace one of your old spells for a better one. Most of the best options are utility spells, so your choice will depend on what your specific party needs. For your feat, choose Ability Improvement and put 2 points into Intelligence. Since Eldritch Knight's spellcasting ability modifier is Intelligence, this will help for the times we do cast spells, but don't worry too much if you have low intelligence. We're changing class next level and we will change our ability points completely. So at level 9, head to Withers and change class. We're going to go fighter again, but we're going to build around Shadowblade this time instead of a two-handed weapon. To get started, choose Fighting Style Defense. You gain a +1 bonus to armor class while wearing armor. Nothing else is useful for us since we'll be using Shadowblade, and our offhand will always just be a stat stick. You can actually hit R or click the 2 swords in the bottom left, and that will make it so you never actually attack with your offhand weapon. For your abilities, you'll want 8 Strength, 16 Dexterity, 14 Constitution, 8 Intelligence, 12 Wisdom, and 16 Charisma. We won't be needing Strength since we're going to bind our Hex weapon, making our attacks use our Charisma modifier, and once we put 1 level into Warlock, our spellcasting ability modifier will become Charisma as well, so we won't need Intelligence, and our Eldritch Knight spells are entirely utility anyways. We're going to choose the same cantrips and spells we chose previously when leveling up, but we are going to get a different feat this time around. This time, choose Ability Improvement and put 2 points into Charisma. We're going to be maxing out Charisma as much as possible. For your second feat, choose Savage Attacker. This build has a ton of damage riders and attacks and will get a lot of value from this feat. For your last feat, get another Ability Improvement and get Charisma to 20. Once you're 8 levels into Fighter, put your 9th level into Warlock. For your subclass, choose the Hexblade. Any cantrip selection is fine, but Eldritch Blast can be helpful to destroy doors or rubble that are immune to psychic damage, which does happen. At level 1 Hexblade, you gain Bind Hexed Weapon. You'll want to use this on your Shadowblade at all times. This makes your Bound Hex Weapon attacks use your Charisma modifier instead of Strength or Dexterity. There's also a chance that Hexblade's Curse will be applied to the target. Hexblade's Curse adds your proficiency bonus to damage rolls against the target, and the number needed to roll a critical hit when attacking a cursed target is reduced by 1. For your spells, it doesn't make too much of a difference, but I would make sure to get Expeditious Retreat if you don't already have it, since we'll want to be concentrating on a spell. Hellish Rebuke can also be useful if an enemy near death attacks you, and you can finish them off using a reaction. At level 10, go back to putting a level in Fighter. At level 9 Fighter, you'll gain Indomitable. You have become as durable as an Iron Golem. Whenever you fail a saving throw, you can roll again using the new result instead. You can also replace a spell. I would get rid of Darkness and pick up Hold Person. Hold Person can give us guaranteed critical hits, which can in many cases guarantee one-shotting your target if you don't already. At level 11, level up Fighter to level 10. You'll gain Eldritch Strike. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, it has disadvantage on its next saving throw against a spell you cast before the end of your next turn. This is perfect for if you want to attack and then cast Hold Person, or attack a target and then cast a scroll. Most targets will die after you attack them once, but if you're up against a tough target, Eldritch Strike sets you up perfectly to follow up with a spell. For your cantrip, nearly any is fine. Don't choose Light though. Shadowblade gives you advantage on your attacks if you are at least partially obscured, so you don't want to be in well-lit areas. The spells you should have are Hold Person, Misty Step, Shadowblade, Featherfall, Enhanced Sleep, Longstrider, and Shield. No need to replace any spells if that's your lineup. Finally, at level 12, get your 11th level of Fighter. You'll now gain Improved Extra Attack. This gives you 3 attacks per action, and your bonus action can be used to make yet another attack if you use Booming Blade with one of your attacks. Combine this with Bloodlust Elixir and you're looking at 7 attacks per turn. Add Action Surge and you can get up to 10 attacks per turn, and so on. You also gain a spell this level. Choose any that suits your taste. And that is the build. And next up are the best pieces of equipment for your Shadowblade Eldritch Knight. The best helmet in the game for the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is the Helmet of Grit. When the wearer has 50% hit points or less, they have an additional bonus action. This will grant us 2 bonus actions per turn, which means we can use one of them for an extra attack through War Magic, and the second for a perfectly balanced strike from Belm, which actually uses our main hand weapon for its attack. To get to 50% hit points or less, you can easily just cast Transfuse Health on any friendly NPC, and the Helmet of Grit can be found in the Tsar Palace in a locked opulent chest in the room with the Cursed Corpse of Victoria. The best cloak in the game for the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is the Cloak of Protection. Since we're playing a Gale Origin, we don't have the Deathstalker's Mantle, which would be perfect, so instead this nice +1 AC and saving throw cloak is the next best, and you can buy this off Tally in Last Light Inn. The best armor in the game for the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is Armor of Persistence. If you don't have a Cleric to give you Warding Bond, this armor gives you excellent survivability through Blade Ward. This gives you resistance to piercing, bludgeoning, and slashing damage. You also gain a 1d4 bonus to saving throws, and all incoming damage is reduced by 2. It's an excellent armor that you can buy from Dammon in Act 3. The best gloves in the game for the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is Legacy of the Masters. These gloves grant a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls with weapons. Since we'll always be giving our targets vulnerabilities to psychic damage, this +2 always turns into +4, and since we are making 4 or more attacks each turn, this really adds up. Legacy of the Masters can be purchased from Dammon in Act 3. And the best boots for the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight are the Disintegrating Nightwalkers. These boots grant you Misty Step, and you can't be enwebbed, entangled, or ensnared, and can't slip on grease or ice. They're great boots that get the job done. You can find them on Nier in the Grimforge. And the best amulet for the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is Brood Mother's Revenge. Whenever the wearer is healed, their weapon becomes coated in magic and deals an additional 1d6 poison damage. As a Hexblade Warlock, each time you slay an enemy that has Hexblade's Curse, you gain your Charisma modifier plus your Warlock level and health back. The amount doesn't matter as much as the fact that you're getting healed, since it's activating Brood Mother's Revenge. The effect lasts for 3 turns and can be found on Korga's corpse. And the best ring for the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is the Strange Conduit Ring. While concentrating on a spell, your weapon attacks deal an additional 1d4 psychic damage. This is perfect since we're giving everybody vulnerability to psychic damage through Resonant Stone. Good spells to use to keep concentration are either Protection from Evil and Good or Expeditious Retreat, or whatever works. The ring can be found inside an elegant chest in the Inquisitor's Chamber in Kresh Yellick. The other best ring for a Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is the Ring of Arcane Synergy. When you deal damage with a cantrip, you gain Arcane Synergy for 2 turns. Arcane Synergy synergy causes your weapon attacks to deal additional damage equal to your spell casting ability modifier. At max level, this should be at least +5, but since we cause psychic vulnerability, it really adds up to +10 damage, and the ring is worn by Gish Farang in Kresh Yelik. And the best weapon for the Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is the Shadowblade, no surprise there. This weapon grants advantage on attack rolls against lightly or heavily obscured targets, and it deals 3d8 psychic damage when upcast using a level 3 spell slot. Since neither level 11 Eldritch Knight nor level 1 Hexblade get a level 3 spell slot, Gale is the best choice here since he can absorb the Shadow Weave to permanently gain a Shadow spell slot, allowing him to create a 3d8 Shadow Blade when this build otherwise wouldn't be able to. You can learn to summon the blade as a level 8 Eldritch Knight. And the best offhand in the game for a Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is Belm. Belm grants you a bonus action attack called Perfectly Balanced Strike. However, instead of using Belm to make the attack, it uses your main hand weapon, which is our Shadowblade. When combined with the Helmet of Grit, this allows us to use both our bonus actions to make main hand attacks each turn, which is incredibly powerful. Belm can be found in Elarathan's home in an opulent chest in the basement. And the best ranged weapon for a Shadowblade Eldritch Knight is Vicious Shortbow. This bow adds 7 damage to your critical strikes. It's pretty broken since that turns out to be 14 damage, and combine this with Hold Person and you're looking at a whole lot of bonus damage each turn. The bow is sold by the Echo of a Bazigal. In patch 8, the Light Cleric has become one of the strongest builds in Baldur's Gate 3 because of the addition of the Circle of the Stars Druid subclass. Light Cleric provides extremely high utility from Radiating Orb, Reverberation, Daze, and a number of powerful AoE spells and conditions such as Spirit Guardians, Destructive Wave, and Warding Flare. This build really shines in Act 2 against Undead, but it is an incredible addition to your party the entire game thanks to Guidance, Fireball, Remove Curse, Bless, Aid, and so much more. To get started, choose Druid at level 1. Circle of the Stars Druid has a more powerful early game than Cleric, and it's useful to start learning the subclass when you don't have as many spells available, so it's best to start our Light Cleric off as a Druid. For your race, Wood Elf is ideal for the increased move speed, and also because we want Fey Ancestry, so that we cannot be magically put to sleep. This will come in handy later when we use Glyph of Warding Sleep on top of ourselves when we're surrounded by enemies to put them all asleep without falling asleep ourselves. For your cantrips, it will be tempting to choose Guidance, but don't. Circle of the Stars Druids learn Guidance through their subclass, so it would be a waste to choose it. Instead, choose Shillelagh and Produce Flame. Shillelagh will help make your melee attacks hit more often, and Produce Flame is a great ranged attack. These cantrips will mainly just be used for escaping the Nautiloid. For your spells, I would recommend Longstrider if you don't have plans for another class to provide it, as it is an extremely useful movement speed increasing condition, and also Healing Word is great for helping a downed teammate at range. Create Water can be helpful for saving Mayrina later, and Fog is also great if you plan on stealing or doing other shenanigans and need cover. At level 2, we'll unlock our subclass Circle of the Stars. We gain Guidance, which will be very helpful for all our ability checks in the future, and we also gain Starry Form, expend a Wild Shape Charge to take on a Starry Form rather than transforming into a beast. 3 Starry Forms are unlocked immediately at level 2, Archer, Chalice, and Dragon. Starry Form Archer grants us Luminous Arrow as a bonus action, which deals 1d8 plus your spellcasting modifier as radiant damage to a target up to 60 feet away, usable every single turn. Our other powerful Starry Form is Dragon. While in this form, when you make a saving throw to maintain concentration on a spell, a roll result of 9 or lower is considered a 10. This is great for our Cleric since we'll be concentrating on Spirit Guardians most of the time, and since we'll be in close range, chances are we'll be getting attacked. But while in Starry Form, we can also use a bonus action to cast Dazzling Breath each turn. Dazzling Breath deals 2d6 plus your spellcasting modifier radiant damage in a cone in front of your character. Since it's an AoE, it's great for when enemies are grouped. We'll be primarily using Starry Form Archer for Luminous Arrow because early on, enemies are usually more spread out. At level 2, you also gain Star Maps. These allow you to cast Guiding Bolt without using a spell slot and are replenished on long rest. And for our 5th spell, I like Ice Knife. It deals good damage and is perfect for when enemies are clumped together but are too far away for Dazzling Breath. Then at level 3, you'll gain access to a number of new 2nd level spells. The one we're interested in is Spike Growth. This spell has a massive area of effect and deals 2d4 piercing damage to any target within the radius upon cast, and another 2d4 1d4 piercing damage per 5 feet moved within it. This adds up to a massive amount of damage, especially against multiple targets that can only attack you in melee range and will wade through the spike growth to reach you. At level 4, you'll unlock another cantrip. I like to choose resistance to help with saving throws during dialogue, and for your next spell, I chose Lesser Restoration. There are a number of good choices depending on what you need, but I like Lesser Restoration just in case I need to get rid of any powerful negative conditions. Finally, for your feat, I would choose Alert. Early on, starting combat by going first can make a world of a difference. Alert gives us time to start setting up radiating orbs on our enemies to reduce their chance to hit, and also along with those orbs, reverberation. Especially on an honor mode playthrough, Alert is very important before we start hitting big power spikes. And at level 5, we're going to head to Withers to change class. We're going to change our class to Cleric, and we're doing this at level 5 because this is where clerics, like many classes, get their first big power spike. For your Cleric cantrips, Produce Flame is good for single target fire damage and can also be helpful in Act 2 for that light source, and it can also be used to light torches from range. You also want to pick up Sacred Flame because we'll be going up against a number of undead that are vulnerable to radiant damage in Act 2, such as the Justiciars, the Shadows, and other creatures. And finally, for our third cantrip, we'll get Resistance, again to help with any saving throws and dialogue. The reason we're not getting Guidance, even though it's an amazing cantrip, once again, is because we'll automatically get it as a Circle of the Stars Druid. Instead, just make sure to pick up the Silver Pendant, which allows you to cast Guidance, and use that until we unlock Guidance through our Druid multi-class. You can find the pendant on the top of a cliff outside the Emerald Grove in Act 1. Guidance will be used very frequently in dialogue and when faced with ability checks, so you'll definitely want the amulet, otherwise you'd be without Guidance until level 7. Guidance can also be used preemptively when entering new areas to give yourself a bonus to nature, perception, survival, religion, or even history ability checks that can happen when you discover a new area. Any party member can use the Silver Pendant, and since good amulets are very rare early on, there should be plenty of companions who have a free spot for it. Preferably put it on a companion that won't be using concentration on anything else. And for your domain, choose Light Domain. Light Domain clerics receive Warding Flare at level 1. This reaction shields you with Divine Light, causing disadvantage on your attacker, possibly causing their attack to miss. This is key for our build, which focuses on generating lots of radiating orbs, which further decrease enemies' chance to hit. For your deity, choose whichever one suits you best, but Selûne has the most dialogue options if you want to roleplay a cleric as much as possible. At level 2, you'll gain your first Channel Divinity charge. This can be used to turn undead, which causes undead creatures to flee in a large area of effect. Once we complete our choices at level 5, this will get much stronger with Destroy Undead, dealing radiant damage. We also gain Radiance of the Dawn, which uses a Channel Divinity charge to deal 2d10 plus character level radiance damage in a large area of effect. Radiant damage is a huge part of this build, so this is what we will use on non-undead creatures for repeatable AoE radiant damage. For your prepared spells, you'll want Guiding Bolt, Inflict Wounds, Bless, Healing Word, and Command. Guiding Bolt grants advantage on the next attack roll against the target creature and deals 2d6 radiant damage. This is your ranged single target damage spell. Inflict Wounds is also great for single target, but requires melee range and deals 3d10 necrotic damage. Since Inflict Wounds is an attack roll and melee range, you can guarantee it's a critical hit by using it on targets that are sleeping or paralyzed from hold person. Bless is great for improving your team's ability to land attacks, and Command is solid crowd control. You can also disarm enemies with Command Drop Weapon. Healing Word is great because it uses a bonus action and it can save down teammates from a distance without using an action. At level 3, you'll unlock Scorching Ray. This spell has excellent single target damage. When combined with Falar Louve's Shriek, you can gain 1d4 thunder damage on every single ray, meaning 3 to 12 thunder damage added total. Scorching Ray also synergizes very well with Coruscation Ring, which applies Radiating Orb on creatures that the wearer deals spell damage to. Scorching Ray deals damage multiple times, which means multiple Radiating Orbs will be created from a single cast. At level 3, you can also prepare new level 2 spells. You'll definitely want to prepare Aid and Spiritual Weapon. Aid increases all nearby allies' hit point maximum, which is great value for a spell, and Spiritual Weapon can not only provide additional damage each turn after being summoned, but it can also apply Bleed, which can grant your entire party advantage if you have Bual's Benediction. And last, I would make sure to prepare Protection from Evil and Good, which is simply too good to ignore. Protection from Evil and Good prevents possession and fear effects from all creature types while you have it on, not just the listed creature types, making you simply immune immune to possession and fear. The spell lists aberrations, celestials, fae, fiends, and undead as the types of creatures that you cannot be charmed, frightened, or possessed by, but turns out you're giving yourself immunity to those conditions against all creature types, which is amazing. The spell is bugged in another way though, and does not apply immunity to charmed against any creature type, but you are immune to frightened and possession from all creature types, which is absolutely incredible. This spell is just so good that I also recommend picking up the Ever-Seeing Eye in Auntie Ethel's lair in Act 1 to ensure each party member has the condition. You can even cast the spell and then unequip the amulet afterwards and keep the condition. At level 4, choose Toll the Dead for your cantrip. Bursting Sinew can't be used on corpses where the final damage was radiant, and since we'll be doing primarily radiant damage, this cantrip won't get as much use. Toll the Dead deals 1d12 necrotic damage if the target is already wounded, so it's actually a good amount of damage for a single target cantrip. And for your new prepared spell slot, I'd prepare Warding Bond. I love this spell to help split up the damage and help prevent your frontline character from getting downed. Now for your feat, you'll want to get Warcaster. Now even though we'll be getting Starry Form Dragon, we won't have that until level 7, and we don't want to lose concentration on Spirit Guardians until then. This amazing feat grants advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration on a spell. We'll want this for when we get Spirit Guardians at level 5, since we'll be in close range, dealing damage, we'll likely get hit, and we don't want to lose concentration on our spell. We'll also gain the ability to use Shocking Grasp as a reaction when enemies leave melee range, which they tend to try to do to escape Spirit Guardians. This Shocking Grasp benefits from your Wisdom modifier, so it's also much better than if you'd get the cantrip. Shocking Grasp makes your target unable to take reactions, and it has advantage on creatures with metal armor. So at level 5, with your massive power spike, Light Clerics automatically learn Fireball and Daylight. Fireball deals massive AoE damage. Your cantrips also gain an additional damage die. Produce Flame now deals 2d8 fire damage, even if the tooltip says otherwise, and Sacred Flame now deals 2d8 radiant damage. You also gain an incredibly powerful passive feature called Destroy Undead. Whenever you successfully turn an undead creature, it also takes 4d6 radiant damage. This is a huge amount of radiant damage. Our Turn Undead action uses a Channel Divinity charge to turn all undead in a large radius around us. This will now deal huge AoE radiant damage thanks to Destroy Undead. However, there is another source of turning undead that you'll want for this build. Gandrel's Aspiration is an uncommon heavy crossbow, which grants sacred munitions. Infuse your crossbow bolts with holy energy. For the rest of your turn, your ranged attacks inflict turned against undead. This weapon action is perfect for our cleric. Use sacred munitions right before shooting an arrow of many targets, which causes your ranged attack to ricochet to nearby targets, including targets that are invisible or protected by Sanctuary, and every single undead hit by your arrow of many targets will become turned and take 4d6 radiant damage. It's absolutely amazing. And what's great about sacred munitions is that it has a 100% chance to turn undead because there is no saving throw to resist it, which is amazing. You'll find Gandrel's Aspiration on Gandrel right outside Auntie Ethel's gnarled tea house in Act 1. It is important to note that once we become our Circle of the Stars subclass, we won't be using this as much, but as we are still just a light cleric, this is still a good use of our bonus action. For our spells, replace Cure Wounds with Spirit Guardians and replace Healing Word with Glyph of Warding as your 8th spell. Spirit Guardians will be the primary spell we concentrate on and is the main reason we chose Warcaster at level 4. Spirit Guardians will deal 3d8 radiant or necrotic damage per turn to enemies within its radius. Since it's somewhat of a small radius, we'll be running from enemy to enemy to activate this damage on them, and the Luminous set fits in perfectly here. Luminous Armor causes Radiating Orb when the wearer deals radiant damage, and Radiating Orb reduces the affected entity's attack rolls by 1 per turn of Radiating Orb, and the max is actually 10 turns. Adamantine Shield is also great here for reeling. When a target misses you with a melee attack, they are sent reeling for 2 turns, and reeling gives -1 to attack rolls for each turn remaining. And Shield Bash is working again, letting you use it as a reaction when hit to possibly knock an enemy prone, and prone is very, very good for everyone in our party. The other spell, Glyph of Warding, is ideal for area of effect sleep. Attacks made in melee range against a sleeping target will be automatic critical hits, and crowd control in general is very powerful. If you're surrounded by enemies, you can just cast this directly on yourself, and because we're an elf, we are immune to sleep thanks to Fey ancestry. So at level 6, we'll gain improved Warding Flare. We can now use our reaction to protect an ally, giving the attacker disadvantage on the attack roll aimed at our ally. We also gain a second Channel Divinity charge, allowing for more Radiance of the Dawn or Turn Undead. At level 6, I would prepare Healing Word again, but switch this spell out for protection from poison before facing Balthazar, since he uses Cloud Kill and Ray of Sickness frequently, and of course, as needed, switch it out for Remove Curse, Calm Emotions, or whichever spell is needed in the moment. Calm Emotions is a really underrated level 2 enchantment spell that has a ton of uses. Besides using it to protect your party from the Harpy's charm or to snap Cazador's servants out of their charm, Calm Emotions can actually be used in a number of boss fights or other difficult encounters to make them much easier. Within Act 1, you can use Calm Emotions to remove the Red Cap's Bloodlust, which lets them attack 3 times and regain 2d8 hit points if it lands a killing blow. It can remove Owlbear's Rage, which grants the owlbear in the cave the multi-attack ability, 2 strength and constitution, 12 temporary hit points, and resistance to all physical damage. It also removes Null's Frenzied Fury, which grants 3 attacks per turn and can also be removed with Calm Emotions, and the Spider Queen's Wrath, which is used by the Phase Spider Matriarch on Tactician difficulty, which causes the Matriarch to gain 4 strength, lose 1 AC, but also gain an additional attack per turn and resistance to all damage, can be removed from Calm Emotions. And these are just a few conditions that Calm Emotions can remove in Act 1. One of the more notable uses for Calm Emotions is actually on Orin. If you cause her to lose her mind by telling her that Saravok betrayed her by telling her own mother to kill her, she will gain a condition called a Mist Most Scarlet. As a side effect, Baal will forcibly transform her into the Slayer. Calm Emotions can actually remove this condition that grants Orin 25 temporary hit points, a +2 bonus to strength, and advantage on wisdom saving throws. So try having Calm Emotions prepared next time you go against some of these enemies. At level 7, it's time to head to Withers for another class change. We're going to repeat everything we did with Cleric up to level 5, except at level 4, do not choose Warcaster as a feat. Instead, choose Spell Sniper. Spell Sniper gives us increased critical strike chance with our spells, and it also gives us Eldritch Blast as a cantrip. And when chosen through Spell Sniper, it will use our spell casting modifier, Wisdom, instead of Charisma for its attack rolls. Once you have 5 levels in Cleric again, instead of taking a 6th and 7th level in Cleric, we're actually going to take 2 levels into Druid at levels 6 and 7. At Druid level 1, for your cantrips, it will be tempting to choose Guidance, but again, do not. Circle of the Stars Druids learn Guidance through their subclass, so it would be a waste. Instead, choose Poison Spray and Thorn Whip. Neither of these will probably ever be used, but it could be possibly used in the right situation where you need to either move an enemy closer with Thorn Whip or deal poison damage, specifically with Poison Spray. For your spells, I would recommend Longstrider if you don't have another class that's already providing it, and Enhanced Leap can be used to jump across anywhere if you have some low strength characters or perhaps get to a secret area. Speak with Animals is just a fun spell that opens up so much dialogue, so I like to have it on at least one character. And last, Fog Cloud is a must for covering up your actions when you sometimes need to ignore the rules. At level 2, we'll unlock our Druid subclass, Circle of the Stars. We gain Guidance, which will be very helpful for all our ability checks, and we can now unequip the Silver Pendant from whoever is wearing it. We also gain Starry Form, and we will be in Starry Form Dragon always, because when we make a saving throw to maintain concentration on a spell, a result of 9 or lower is considered a 10 while in this form, which is just incredible. While in Starry Form Dragon, we can also use a bonus action to cast Dazzling Breath each turn. Dazzling Breath deals 2d6 plus your spellcasting modifier, radiant damage in a cone in front of your character, and since it's an AoE, it is amazing for when enemies are grouped together. At level 2, you'll also gain Star Maps. These allow you to cast Guiding Bolt without using a spell slot, and they are replenished on long rest. Guiding Bolt also becomes Always Prepared, which frees up a spell slot to prepare something else as a Cleric. Speaking of spells, for our Druid's 5th spell, again, I like Ice Knife, deals good AoE damage and is perfect when enemies are clumped but are too far away for Dazzling Breath. And at level 8, we will be getting our 6th level of Cleric. Once again, we're going to be gaining improved Warding Flare. We can continue to use our reaction to protect our allies, and we will gain a 2nd Channel Divinity charge, allowing for more Radiance of the Dawn or Turn Undead. At level 6, I would prepare the same spells, but add in Hold Person for those guaranteed critical hits. At level 9, we'll be getting our 7th level of Cleric. At level 7 Cleric, we can now prepare Banishment. This causes you to temporarily banish your target to another plane of existence. This control spell has some really nice utility. In Act 3, if a Steel Watcher is self-destructing, you can banish it and the explosion will be nullified. This can potentially save your party from a lot of damage, since the Steel Watcher will immobilize your party through its linear area of effect Maim ability and then self-destruct right on top of you. The same idea can be used against Answer right before his Gathering Power ability will go off. Instead of running for cover, you can just cast Banishment, and some other plane of existence will have to worry about that. At level 7 Cleric, you can also prepare Freedom of Movement and Death Ward. Both of these are great spells that you should use and then unprepare. If you have a camp cleric for those, then great, but if not, they're both strong conditions you should put on your party, especially right before a boss fight and you have access to a tentacled conch of restoration like right before the second encounter with Ketheric. At level 10, we'll be getting our 8th level of cleric. At this level, we learn potent spellcasting, which adds our spellcasting proficiency modifier to the damage rolls of our cleric cantrips. This is very nice, and it will make our Toll the Dead, Produce Flame, and Sacred Flame all deal more damage. Since Eldritch Blast is not a cleric cantrip, unfortunately it does not gain our wisdom modifier to its damage roll. Eldritch Blast is still great if you need to finish off 3 different low health enemies, or if you want to quickly apply reverberation or need to deal force damage specifically, or even if you want to build up a lot of radiating orbs from Coruscation Ring, but Toll the Dead and Produce Flame will deal more damage thanks to potent spellcasting. And since we just gained potent spellcasting, now is a great time to choose ability improvement as our next feat. Put 1 point into wisdom to bring your wisdom to 18, which improves our modifier from +3 to +4, and then put a point in constitution to bring it to 14, increasing our modifier to +2. For spells, I would prepare Lesser Restoration to be ready to remove any diseases or blindness that might debilitate your party. At level 11, we'll be getting our 9th level of cleric. As a light domain cleric, we learn Destructive Wave and Flame Strike. Destructive Wave deals 5d6 thunder damage, and depending on the variant, 5d6 radiant or necrotic damage as well in a very large area of effect. This spell can also knock all your targets prone, which grants advantage on your attack rolls against them, and giving them disadvantage on dexterity and strength saves, meaning Spirit Guardians, Sacred Flame, Fireball, and other spells that use a dexterity save will have a higher chance of succeeding. And finally, at level 12, we're going to get our 10th level of cleric. We gain another cantrip. Any of them is fine to choose, but I chose Blade Ward. We also gain another prepared spell slot, and I chose Sanctuary. At cleric level 10, we also learn Divine Intervention. Divine Intervention can only be used once per playthrough, and you have 4 options. There's Sunder the Heretical, call upon your deity to bring forth a radiant cataclysm upon all nearby enemies. This ability deals 8d10 radiant damage to all enemies in a 50-foot radius. Targets can succeed a wisdom saving throw to take half damage. This option is great if you're up against a large number of enemies to really get maximum value. Opulent Revival, resurrect fallen companions with half their hit points and restore all nearby allies as if they had long rested. This ability applies to allies within a 60-foot radius. This option is great if you're in a close encounter where multiple party members have fallen and you need to swing the battle in your favor. There's also Arm Thy Servant, call upon your deity to grant you a legendary weapon forged in the fires of your holy bond. This ability creates a legendary mace in the cleric's inventory and immediately equips it. This mace is called the Devotee's Mace and does not go away even if you change your class. You can also sell it if you wanted. You could change each companion to a cleric and then use Divine Intervention, Arm Thy Servant to create the mace and then sell it to generate some gold. And last, there is Golden Generosity, call upon your deity to provide you with a rich bounty of potions and camp supplies. This ability spawns a chest called Bestowed Bounty on the ground next to the cleric, containing camp supplies, superior or supreme healing potions, and 6 to 7 elixirs. If you change your class, the Bestowed Bounty chest will vanish, but any items that were inside it will drop on the ground. Interestingly, the items generated by the Bestowed Bounty are tied to each save, so the first cast of Bestowed Bounty on a save will always give the same items, the second a different set, and so on. And next up are the best pieces of equipment for your light cleric. So the best helmet in the game for light clerics is the Holy Lance Helm. This helm has a chance to deal radiant damage when an enemy misses their attack roll against you, which includes spell attack rolls, and trust me, they'll be missing all the time. If you deal radiant damage after they miss, thanks to luminous armor, you will cause a radiant shockwave inflicting radiating orb to all targets in a 10-foot radius, further reducing their chance to hit. The Holy Lance Helm can be found on the roof of the Rosy Morn Monastery. The best cloak in the game for light clerics is the Thunder Skin Cloak. There are a lot of great defensive options for cloaks, but this cloak works best for our build. Thunder Skin Cloak causes creatures who deal damage to the wearer, who also have reverberation, to become dazed if they fail a Constitution saving throw. Dazed is amazing for this build because it gives disadvantage on wisdom saving throws, which makes our Toll the Dead, Hold Person, and Turn Undead spells have a higher chance of succeeding. Dazed also causes afflicted entities to become unable to take reactions and lose the dexterity bonus to their armor class, which is also great. And you can easily acquire the Thunderskin Cloak by purchasing it from Araja Bloodra on the main floor of Moonrise Towers. The best armor in the game for light clerics is Luminous Armor. This armor grants radiating shockwave when the wearer deals radiant radiant damage, they cause a radiant shockwave which inflicts radiating orb in a 10-foot radius around the wearer. Radiating orb gives the affected entity -1 to attack rolls per remaining turn. This synergizes with the entire light cleric build, which deals primarily radiant damage. And this armor is found in a locked and trapped opulent chest in the Saloonite outpost in the Underdark. The chest is behind a hidden door, revealed by a perception check, or it can be accessed by jumping from the room with a waypoint. The best gloves in the game for light clerics are gloves of belligerent skies. These gloves grant thunderous conversion. When the wearer deals thunder, lightning, or radiant damage, inflict 2 turns of reverberation upon the targets. Reverberation causes the affected entity to have a -1 penalty to strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws per turn remaining. When the entity has 5 or more turns of reverberation, it takes 1d4 thunder damage and possibly falls prone. Prone is also great for our build because it makes the affected entity have disadvantage on strength and dexterity saving throws. Sacred Flame, Fireball, Glyph of Warding, and a number of our other spells have a dexterity save, which means once an enemy is prone, they will have a higher chance of succeeding. Also, attacks against a prone creature have advantage if they're made within 10 feet of the creature, so our Inflict Wounds or Eldritch Blast would gain advantage. Creatures that have been knocked prone through reverberation also occasionally skip their turn entirely, which is a huge added benefit. And the best boots for our light cleric are the Boots of Stormy Clamor. These boots cause 2 turns of reverberation when the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature. We have so many conditions that we're applying as a light cleric, things like Radiating Orb, Dazed, Prone, Falar Luve's Shriek, Spirit Guardians, and so many more. You'll often apply enough reverberation during an enemy's turn to send them prone and end their turn prematurely, which is extremely powerful. Also, reverberation is currently bugged, and a creature that starts their turn prone, which was caused from reverberation, will actually sometimes just skip their turn entirely. And the best amulet for the light cleric is the Spine Shudder amulet, which grants the wearer Crackling Resonance. When the wearer deals damage with a ranged spell attack, inflict 2 reverberation upon the target. Reverberation is a condition that afflicts the entity with a -1 penalty to strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws per turn remaining. When the entity has 5 or more turns of reverberation, it takes 1d4 thunder damage and possibly falls prone. A prone target has disadvantage on strength and dexterity saving throws, which many of our spells and cantrips have, such as Sacred Flame, Fireball, Burning Hands, Ice Knife, and Dazzling Breath. Also, while prone, the afflicted entity cannot move or take actions, bonus actions, or reactions, and attacks against a prone creature have advantage if they're made within 10 feet of the creature. This means if we cast Inflict Wounds against a prone target, we will have advantage on that attack. Also, since Crackling Resonance activates on a ranged spell attack, it pairs great with our Eldritch Blast, which comes from the Spell Sniper feat, which means the attack roll uses our spellcasting proficiency modifier, which is Wisdom. And the best ring for a light cleric is the Coruscation Ring, which applies 2 turns of Radiating Orb on creatures that the wearer deals spell damage to. Our Eldritch Blast synergizes well with Coruscation Ring because Eldritch Blast deals damage multiple times, which means many turns of Radiating Orb can be created from a single cast, which is perfect for when you're up against a single powerful enemy. At level 10, Eldritch Blast fires 3 beams, which means 6 turns of Radiating Orb from a single cast. And as a reminder, for our light cleric, we gain Eldritch Blast when we take Spell Sniper at level 4 cleric, which also increases our chance to critically hit with spells and causes Eldritch Blast to add our spellcasting proficiency modifier, Wisdom, to the attack roll. And to find the Coruscation Ring, head to the Last Light Inn cellar, and it can be found in a trapped heavy chest. And the other best ring for a light cleric is the Ring of Spiteful Thunder. When the wearer of this ring deals thunder damage to a reverberating creature, it becomes dazed unless it succeeds a Constitution saving throw. Since our light cleric is wearing reverberation gear, this will trigger very frequently, and dazed targets have disadvantage on Wisdom saving throws, they can't take reactions, and lose the dexterity bonus to their armor class. This is perfect for us since Spirit Guardians has a Wisdom save, which is one of our most powerful spells, and so does Toll the Dead. So when a target becomes dazed, it's time to use Spirit Guardians and Toll the Dead. This ring can be purchased from Roa Moonglow, located on the main floor of Moonrise Towers. And the best weapon for a light cleric is Falar Luve. Falar Luve's Shriek causes all enemies to have a 1d4 penalty to Charisdom, Wisdom, and Intelligence saving throws, and they take an extra 1d4 thunder damage when taking damage. Since our light cleric will be in very close range applying Spirit Guardians, it's the perfect combination to also have Falar Luve's Shriek. Although the thunder damage does not work with the Gloves of Belligerent Skies, it's still an amazing condition to apply to your enemies. In Act 2 though, you'll want to have the Blood of Lathander. Lathander's light is simply too good to ignore when facing hordes of undead. Sunbeam is also a great spell that deals radiant damage and synergizes very well with the build. When fighting undead, Blood of Lathander is best, otherwise Falar Luve. And the best offhand in the game for Light Cleric is the Adamantine Shield. When a melee attack misses you, the attacker is sent reeling for 2 turns. Reeling causes a -1 penalty to attack rolls for every turn remaining. You also gain Shield Bash as a reaction, which you can use after a foe hits you with a melee attack. Shield Bash knocks your attacker prone unless they succeed a dexterity saving throw. And best of all, attackers can't land critical hits on the wearer, which is great for survivability. To get the Adamantine Shield, you need to craft it at the Adamantine Forge using Mithril and the Shield Mold. The mold can be found on a skeleton in the Grimforge at the very top of the stairs in the dormitory near the room with the Maragon Legionnaire and the Hellsboars. And the best ranged weapon for your Light Cleric is the Fabricated Arbalest. Since you don't get this until you defeat Gortash, you should settle for Gandrel's Aspiration until then. Gandrel's Aspiration is a uncommon heavy crossbow which grants sacred munitions. Infuse your crossbow bolts with holy energy. For the rest of your turn, your ranged attacks inflict turned against undead. This weapon action is perfect for our cleric. Use sacred munitions right before shooting an arrow of many targets, which causes your ranged attack to ricochet to nearby targets, including targets that are invisible or protected by Sanctuary, and every single undead hit by your arrow of many targets will become turned and take 4d6 radiant damage thanks to our Destroy Undead feat. Absolutely amazing. And what's great about sacred munitions is that it has a 100% chance to turn undead because there is no saving throw to resist it. You'll find Gandrel's Aspiration on Gandrel right outside Auntie Ethel's gnarled tea house in Act 1. The Divine Smite Sorcadin is one of the strongest builds in Baldur's Gate 3 because of the extremely high damage output thanks to guaranteed critical strikes from a number of spells and conditions and very powerful spells and auras to complement it. The build has great crowd control by casting control spells like Hold Person as a bonus action thanks to Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. The build is also incredibly strong very early on and is perfect for a Tav thanks to the high charisma and strength. To get started, choose Half-Orc Paladin at level 1. Half-Orc is by far the best race because the build is focused on guaranteeing critical hits with Smite. Half-Orcs get a passive feature called Savage Attacks, which causes your critical hits to roll one of the damage dice an additional time and add it as extra damage to the critical hit. What's crazy about this feature is that it also activates again on all other damage sources from that critical hit. That includes it being added to things like Smite and Falar Luve's Shriek, which means in this scenario you'd get 3 additional dice worth of damage added, 1 for each damage source. We'll always have Smite activating on critical hits as a reaction for this bonus damage. And don't worry about overkill, if an enemy would die without the need to smite, it won't cast. Also, if you don't like how half-orcs look, you can use Disguise Self and still keep these racial bonuses. This can even make logical sense to change to Githyanki if you want to use the Silver Sword of the Astral Plane, for example, and you'll get the bonuses from being a Githyanki from the sword, and at the same time keep bonuses from being a half-orc. Half-orcs also get a passive feature called Relentless Endurance, which causes them to regain 1 hit point instead of being downed when reaching 0 hit points. This can actually be very helpful if something unexpectedly terrible happens, like falling off a glitched elevator, and instead of losing your honor run, your half-orc ends up saving your honor run. At level 1, make sure to select Oath of Vengeance as your subclass. Oath of Vengeance paladins get 3 amazing spells from their oath that are always prepared: Vow of Enmity, Misty Step, and Hold Person. All 3 of these spells are great and we'll discuss them more when they're unlocked. For your background, I prefer Soldier for proficiency in athletics and intimidation. This helps a lot if this is your Tav and your dialogue character, allowing you to intimidate your way through conversation. For your ability points, take everything out of dexterity and add them to Constitution and Charisma. Paladins gain health points equal to 6 plus their Constitution modifier per level, so this will add up as you level. It also helps with maintaining concentration, which we'll want. Charisma is really important too for both dialogue and trader prices, but your Charisma modifier also increases the number of prepared spells you can have and makes Aura of Protection much more powerful, which grants your allies a bonus to saving throws equal to your Charisma modifier. At level 2, you'll unlock a fighting style. Choose Great Weapon Fighting. This allows you to re-roll when you roll a 1 or a 2 on a damage die for an attack with a 2-handed melee weapon. This is especially powerful for a paladin because, unlike in 5e, added damage dice from all damage sources get re-rolled, such as Falar Luve's Shriek, Githborn Psionic Weapon, Helldusk Glove's Infernal Touch, Divine Smite, or even damage coming from a dipped weapon are also all re-rolled, so this is perfect for our build. For your prepared spells, choose Bless, Command, Searing Smite, Thunderous Smite, and Wrathful Smite. These smites can be used situationally against enemies enemies with certain vulnerabilities. At level 3, you'll unlock Vow of Enmity. This class action gives you advantage on attack rolls against the enemy you use it on for 10 turns. However, it is much more powerful if you instead use it on yourself. This gives you advantage on all attack rolls you make on all your attacks for 10 turns instead, which is incredibly powerful, especially since at level 4, our first feat we are choosing is going to be Great Weapon Master, which will give us plus 10 damage to our two-handed weapon attacks at the cost of -5 to our attack rolls. The -5 to our attack rolls is made irrelevant from our Vow of Enmity granting advantage against all enemies and because of our crowd control spells like Hold Person, which give you a guaranteed critical hit. Great Weapon Master also gives us a bonus attack when we land a critical hit or kill a target with a melee weapon attack, which we can use as a bonus action that turn. Since we're critical strike focused, this is a perfect fit that we'll be utilizing frequently. At level 5, you'll get yet another power spike from extra attack. We can now make 2 attacks per action. With our Great Weapon Master feat, we will now be attacking 3 times per turn. You also unlock 2 of your oath spells, Hold Person and Misty Step. These are always prepared and are both great spells. Hold Person can be used to guarantee critical strikes, and Misty Step can be used for getting to your enemy quickly. I like to prepare Aid, Branding Smite, and Lesser Restoration. You can upcast Aid for a powerful health buff for your whole party, which is great for keeping everyone alive, and Branding Smite is fantastic at stopping an enemy from going invisible like your gear. Lesser Restoration can also be very helpful if blinded or if a teammate is paralyzed, you can help them get their turn back. At level 6, you'll finally unlock Aura of Protection. This aura grants you and nearby allies a bonus to saving throws equal to your charisma modifier. This is a bonus to all saving throws, which is incredible to resist crowd control effects and other hostile spells and actions creatures will take against your party. For example, if you're hit by a fireball but you succeed the save, you'll only take half the damage. Or if hit by Thunder Wave, you won't be pushed back by the spell, which could potentially save your life if you would have been pushed into a chasm. At level 7, we're going to take our first level into Sorcerer, and the rest of our levels will also go into Sorcerer as well. For cantrips, you'll want Friends, Firebolt, and Light. Friends is similar to Guidance, and that we'll be using it a lot during dialogue, but it gives you advantage on the roll, which is really helpful to make sure you succeed. Firebolt can be used to activate resistance to fire, which we'll get into when we talk about subclass, and Light is important to activate bonus damage from Callous Glow Ring for whoever in your party might be using it. For your spells, you'll want to choose Shield and Sleep. Shield can be used as a reaction to increase your armor class by 5 until your next turn. It's incredibly powerful since you're only prompted to use it when you would otherwise get hit. Sleep is powerful as well because attacks against sleeping targets are automatically critical hits. Sleep is also an enchantment spell, which means after you attack, you can cast it as a bonus action thanks to Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. For your subclass, you'll want to choose Draconic Bloodline and Draconic Ancestry Gold. This gives you a large number of benefits. You'll gain Draconic Resilience hit points, granting you +1 hit point for each sorcerer level, and you'll also get access to Disguise Self in case you don't like how half-orc looks, or you want to unlock bonuses from gear. You can do that now without needing the Mask of the Shapeshifter from the Digital Deluxe upgrade. And you'll also unlock 2 more amazing bonuses once we get to level 6 for choosing Draconic Bloodline. At level 8, choose False Life. This necromancy spell can be upcasted to grant 27 temporary hit points for free. By equipping the Staff of Cherished Necromancy and slaying anything, you'll get a condition called Life Essence, which you can activate to make your next necromancy spell not cost spell slots. This can be repeated an infinite number of times, essentially letting you reapply this at will for free. For your class passives, take Metamagic Extended Spell and Twinned Spell. Twinned Spell is very powerful for doubling the effects of your spells. This is great on something like Drake Throat Glaive to grant 2 of your party members the bonus to attack rolls and elemental damage, or to twin cast Haste on yourself and an ally, or even potentially using it to cast Hold Person on 2 enemies. At level 9, you'll gain access to Mirror Image. This spell is great for increasing your AC. Each image increases your AC by 3, and you create 3 when cast. That's 9 AC you'll gain, and the best part is that you can cast this as a bonus action after attacking thanks to Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. For your class passive, choose Metamagic Quickened Spell. Quickened Spell can be used to cast Hold Person as a bonus action. If you upcast Hold Person, you can have it target more than one enemy, which lets you get 2 guaranteed critical strikes, which will usually one-shot both of your targets that turn. At level 10, we're going to pick up some utility. Choose Mage Hand for your cantrip and Featherfall for your spell. For your feat, choose Ability Improvement and put both points into Charisma. We want to get our Charisma modifier as high as we can for our aura and for our Draconic Ancestry subclass bonus that we get at level 6 Sorcerer. Strength can be easily increased increase throughout the game from Elixir of Hill Giant Strength, or even better, Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength. At level 11, we can finally learn Fireball. This spell will be our source of AoE damage, which will become really strong next level. Also, make sure to replace Featherfall with Haste. And finally, at level 12, we will unlock two powerful subclass features, Elemental Affinity Damage and Resistance. Elemental Affinity Damage lets you add your Charisma modifier to the damage of a spell you cast that is the type associated with your Draconic ancestry. Since we chose Fire, our Fireball will be getting our Charisma modifier added to its damage, which makes it monstrously powerful. We'll also be able to activate Elemental Affinity Resistance by casting Firebolt before combat at the cost of a sorcery point to gain resistance to fire damage. And for our final spell, choose Counterspell. This can be very useful to prevent a devastating spell from hitting your team. And next up is how to guarantee critical strikes. Since this build doesn't try to increase critical strike chance at all and instead chooses to guarantee critical strikes, it's important to know all your ways of getting a guaranteed critical strike. Attacking a sleeping target guarantees a critical strike when made in melee range. Sleep can come from other party members from the spell Sleep and can help a lot with the early game before you have access to Hold Person. Sleep can also come from Drow Poison, which can be coded on your weapon or thrown by an ally, or you can even cast an AoE Sleep through Glyph of Warding, which is quite powerful. Attacking a paralyzed target will also guarantee a critical hit. Paralyzation can come from Crawler Mucus, which is a poison that you can coat your weapon with or throw. Hold Monster will also guarantee a critical hit because the target is considered paralyzed, and even ghouls you summon from Dance Macabre have a chance to cause paralysis, so it doesn't hurt to get that spell, especially since with Life Essence it doesn't cost a spell slot. There's also a Wild Shape form that can synergize with the Oath of Vengeance Paladin. The Wolf Wild Shape has an action called Exposing Bite, which causes the next attack against the target to be a critical hit, which refreshes on short rest. You can also get a guaranteed critical hit from Wild Magic Enchant Weapons, which causes all creatures within a radius around the Wild Magic Sorcerer to have their next attack be a critical strike. This is going to be so random though that it's not worth going after in my opinion. There's also a ring called Killer's Sweetheart, which gives you a guaranteed critical hit after you kill a creature, which can be used as a reaction once per long rest, and you can find this at the end of the self-same trial in the Gauntlet of Shar. And last, you'll want the Illithid power Luck of the Far Realms. It lets you turn a successful attack roll into a critical hit, and ideally, you're also going to want to get every single Illithid power possible in order to get some amazing Cull the Weak activations. Once your enemy has 27 HP, even 1 damage can make their mind collapse from Cull the Weak, and this can come from Psionic Backlash as they cast a spell, your Flesh Melter Cloak if they hit you, or Infernal Retribution dealing burning damage from Helldusk Armor when you succeed a saving throw, which is actually quite common considering we'll have +6 to all saving throws from Aura of Protection. However, you will want to prioritize getting Luck of the Far Realms first for the guaranteed critical strike before you go after other Illithid powers. And next up is the best in slot gear for this build. The best helm for this build is the Diadem of Arcane Synergy. This circlet grants Arcane Synergy when you inflict a condition, which causes your weapon attacks to deal additional damage equal to your spellcasting ability modifier. That's Charisma. Since we put so many points into Charisma, this is perfect for us, granting us a nearly perpetual +6 damage to all of our attacks, but it will vary depending on how much Charisma you have at the time, and you can find this circlet on Ardent Jezereth in the Inquisitor's Chamber in Kresh Yelik. The best cloak for this build is the Flesh Melter's Cloak. This cloak deals 1d4 acid damage whenever a creature deals melee damage to the wearer, and while this might not seem incredible, it serves 2 important roles. One, it allows you to easily clear large groups of weak monsters who will melee attack you and then destroy themselves, and then later on, once you've acquired all your Illithid powers, your cloak will instantly slay any creature that hits you in melee range with less than 26 HP thanks to Cull the Weak. Cloak of Protection is another fine pick since it grants +1 to saving throws and AC, but I prefer the utility of an aura that deals damage anytime we get hit in melee range, which can activate Cull the Weak. And you can find the Flesh Melter Cloak and a gilded chest in the House of Healing Morgue. And the best armor for this build is Helldusk Armor. This armor grants Infernal Retribution. When you succeed a saving throw, the caster receives burning for 3 turns, which deals 1d4 fire damage. This 1d4 fire damage can activate Cull the Weak, instantly slaying the enemy if they are below 26 HP when you have all your Illithid powers. The armor also grants resistance to fire damage, and you cannot be burned, and you take 3 less damage from all sources. And it also gives you the ability to fly, so that's pretty cool. It's an incredible armor and can be looted from Raphael in the House of Hope. Since that's pretty late into the game, the Adamantine Splint armor is another great armor that you can get before you get Helldusk. And the best gloves for this build are the Helldusk gloves. These gloves grant a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC, which is perfect since we're going to be casting Hold Person frequently. It also grants Infernal Touch, granting 1d6 bonus fire damage to weapon attacks. This is an additional damage source, and as such, it will get re-rolled whenever we roll a 1 or a 2 thanks to great weapon fighting, and on a critical hit, we'll gain additional bonus damage thanks to savage attacks. The gloves also grant +1 to strength saving throws, and you can cast Rays of Fire, which gets your charisma modifier added to the damage thanks to elemental affinity from your draconic ancestry. You can get these gloves from Harlep in the House of Hope. Since that's also pretty late into the game, you could get gloves of dexterity first from Ajak Nir Jira in Kresh Yelik. And the best boots for this build are the Helldusk boots. These boots grant steadfast, making you unable to be forcibly moved by a foe's spells or actions, and you ignore the effects of difficult terrain. You also gain infernal evasion when you fail a saving throw, if that would ever happen. You can use your reaction to succeed instead. And when you succeed a saving throw, the caster starts burning for fire damage, which can instantly kill them if they are low enough health. These boots also grant Hellcrawler, which lets you teleport to an area and deal 2d8 fire damage where you land, kind of like a Misty Step, but angrier and more fiery. The best amulet for this build is the Amulet of Greater Health. This sets the wearer's constitution score to 23 and grants advantage on constitution saving throws. The additional hit points are great, and more saving throws means more burning damage. If another party member is using this amulet, you can also go for the Fey Semblance amulet, which gives advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. Combine this with your +6 bonus to all saving throws, and it will be very rare that you ever fail a saving throw. This Amulet of Greater Health can be stolen from a pedestal in the archive of the House of Hope, and the Amulet of Fey Semblance can be earned as a reward for completing the quest Avenge the Hag Survivors in Act 3. And the best ring for this build is the Killer's Sweetheart. This ring grants you a guaranteed critical strike as a reaction after you kill a creature. You can activate this once per long rest. This can be found after you complete the self-same trial in the Gauntlet of Shar. Once this activates, you can switch this ring out for Strange Conduit ring, or you could just leave it equipped. For your second ring, you'll want Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. This ring grants Illusion Quickening. After hitting a creature with a weapon attack, you can cast Illusion or enchantment spells as a bonus action. This is amazing for our build because we can swing once, cast Hold Person as a bonus action, and then get a guaranteed critical strike without the help of any party members. You can also upcast Hold Person to target more than one target, but even better, you can cast it on 2 targets with Metamagic Twin Spell at the small cost of 2 sorcery points. And the best melee weapon for this build is Balduran's Giant Slayer. On a hit with this weapon, it deals double the damage from your strength modifier and grants advantage on attack rolls against large, huge, or gargantuan creatures. You also gain a class action called Giant Form, which gives you 1d6 additional damage and 27 temporary hit points, along with advantage on strength checks and saving throws. The temporary hit points fade after 10 turns, so remember to reapply your free upcasted False Life using your Life Essence. Another weapon that is also incredibly strong with this build is the Silver Sword of the Astral Plane if you disguise yourself as a Githyanki. The blade grants you an additional 1d4 psychic damage, advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, and resistance to psychic damage along with Cannot Be Charmed. If you like being a Githyanki, this is a great option, otherwise the Balduran's Giant Slayer will deal the most damage from Giant Slayer. And for your ranged weapon slot, Gaunter Mail is the best. It grants a spell called Celestial Haste, which lasts for 5 turns and doesn't cause lethargic when it ends. This is great since we can also twin cast it on 2 allies, and if you ever accidentally cast another concentration spell after this, you won't be instantly stunned from lethargic. You can get Gaunter Mail from the Steel Watcher Titan in the Steel Watch Foundry. Before that, another great ranged weapon is the Darkfire Shortbow, which is almost as good. It grants resistance to fire and cold damage and lets you cast haste. You can purchase the Darkfire Shortbow from Dammon in Last Light Inn in Act 2. The Open Hand Monk is one of the strongest builds in Baldur's Gate 3 because of the extremely high damage output thanks to Tavern Brawler and the insane interaction with soul coins, adding 2 instances of 1d4 fire damage to each unarmed attack, and a flurry of actions that let you attack many times per turn. The build gets strong very early on thanks to Unarmed Strike, which allows you to make an unarmed attack as a bonus action after attacking with a monk weapon or while unarmed. And the build also has incredibly high survivability thanks to evasion, deflect missiles, unarmored defense, and so much more. To get started, choose Wood Elf or Wood Half-Elf Monk at level 1. Wood Elf is the best choice for Monk because of the increased move speed granted through Fleet of Foot, which is 1.5 meters or 5 feet of additional movement speed. But if you really want to make your Monk as strong as possible, you'll want to make Karlach your monk. Karlach is the best choice for monk because of her interaction with soul coins. Anytime Karlach makes an unarmed attack while under the effect of Infernal Fury from a soul coin, she will deal not 1 but 2 extra instances of 1d4 fire damage regardless of her current health or rage status. Since monks can dish out a high number of attacks, that fire damage really adds up. Later on in Act 3, if you wanted to switch your monk to Astarion for an extra 1d10 necrotic damage per attack, then that would be slightly stronger. For your background, I prefer Soldier for proficiency in athletics and intimidation. There's also a ton of easy to earn inspiration points. Just be sure to use them since the max you can have at any time is 4. And for your ability points, take all of them out of strength and bring your dexterity to 16. Monks get a feature called Dexterous Attacks, which makes your attacks scale with dexterity instead of strength if your dexterity is higher. So by increasing dexterity, we can keep our attacks strong while at the same time improving our initiative rolls and armor class. High dexterity will also benefit another monk class feature called Deflect Missiles. We also want to put 15 points into Constitution to increase our maximum hit points as much as possible. We want 15 because at level 4, once we get Tavern Brawler, we'll be able to bump it up to 16 and have a very nice maximum health pool. We also will want to put points into Wisdom because of Unarmored Defense. This class feature adds your Wisdom modifier to your armor class if you're not wearing any armor. Wisdom is also going to provide numerous other benefits that we'll get into later. And we'll be leaving Charisma at 8. I wouldn't recommend Monk for a dialogue character, and Karlach is easily the best monk until Act 3 Astarion, so low Charisma wouldn't really be a problem if we go with Karlach or Astarion as our monk. At level 2, you'll unlock Unarmored Movement, increasing your movement speed by 10 feet if you are not wearing armor or using a shield. This is perfect since we're going to be unarmored and primarily dealing damage in melee range. You also unlock Step of the Wind Dash, which allows you to dash using just a bonus action instead of an action, so you can dash and attack in the same turn. It also makes your jump no longer require a bonus action, allowing you to save on movement speed by jumping over difficult terrain or obstacles. At level 3, you'll unlock your subclass. Choose Way of the Open Hand. This unlocks Flurry of Blows, which come in 3 varieties, but all 3 of them cause you to punch twice in quick succession, which, when you have Infernal Fury, will add 1d4 fire damage twice to each attack, meaning with a single Flurry of Blows, you'll deal an additional 4 instances of 1d4 fire damage. Flurry of Blows Topple is one of the best of the 3, possibly knocking your target prone. Once prone, all attacks made within 10 feet of the target will have advantage, which is great if you have other melee in your party, and the target will also have disadvantage on strength and dexterity saving throws. But let's be honest, Shadowheart will still probably miss her Sacred Flame. Flurry of Blows Stagger causes your target to become unable to take reactions. This can be useful to help a teammate disengage without getting hit by an opportunity attack, or against the Flaming Fist in Act 3, which have lots of reactions. And last, Flurry of Blows Push knocks your target 17 feet away. This can be very helpful when used to push an enemy off a cliff or high place for bonus damage or into a chasm for an instant kill. And at level 3, you'll also unlock another class feature called Deflect Missiles. This allows you to use your reaction to reduce the damage from a ranged weapon attack by 1d10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your monk level. So high dexterity means more damage reduced, which is why we increased it to 16 during character creation. If you fully reduce the damage of the missile, you can use a key point to actually catch the ranged attack and throw it back at the attacker as part of your reaction. At level 4, you'll get a massive power spike by unlocking your first feat, Tavern Brawler. This adds your strength modifier twice to your damage and attack rolls when you make an unarmed attack, use an improvised weapon, or throw something. At this point, unequip any weapon you might be using and use only unarmed attacks. Also, make sure to always have an Elixir of Hill Giant Strength on at all times because we want a high strength modifier, and since we dumped all our strength, the elixir is mandatory. You can find ample supply from Auntie Ethel in the Grove in Act 1, and anytime you level up a character or long rest, her supply will refresh, so be sure to stock up on plenty before you head south of the Blighted Village, at which point Auntie Ethel will no longer be in the Grove. Also, be sure to put the ability point you get from Tavern Brawler into Constitution to bring it to 16. At level 5, you'll get yet another power spike from Extra Attack. You can now make 2 attacks per action. You also gain access to Stunning Strike. For the cost of an action and a key point, you can possibly stun the target for 1 turn. This is very powerful because a stunned enemy cannot move or take actions, bonus actions, or reactions, and will automatically fail strength and dexterity saving throws, but rest assured, Shadowheart will still still find a way to miss. At level 6, you'll unlock improved unarmored movement, which increases your movement speed by 15 feet while you aren't wearing armor or using a shield. This is perfect for our build since we won't be using either. You also gain key empowered strikes, causing your unarmed attacks to count as magical for the purpose of overcoming enemies' resistance to immunity and non-magical damage, which is amazing. And on top of all that, you gain 3 new toggleable passive subclass features: Manifestation of Body, Mind, and Soul. Each one of these passives add damage to your unarmed attacks. Manifestation of Body adds necrotic damage, Mind adds psychic, and Soul adds radiant. And since you can toggle only one of these at a time, it provides you with the flexibility to choose what your opponent is vulnerable to. For example, in Act 2, radiant damage will serve you well, and oftentimes enemies have no resistance to psychic, making it a great choice as well. It's also very important to note that the damage for each of these is 1d4 plus your wisdom modifier. So by increasing your wisdom, your manifestation of mind, body, and soul will also deal more damage. Last, you also gain a class action called Wholeness of Body, which grants you half your key points back instantly and lasts 3 turns, granting 1 additional key point per turn and granting you an extra bonus action for each of those 3 turns. This is extremely powerful because an extra bonus action each turn means we can use Flurry of Blows twice as often, which means 6 unarmed attacks per turn, paired again with Karlach's Infernal Fury condition, and we're getting to insane levels of damage. Wholeness of Body also heals you on use. At level 7, you get another set of amazing class features. First, Evasion, which allows you to completely nullify all damage from a spell or effect when it would have dealt half damage on a successful dexterity saving throw. And even if you fail the dexterity saving throw, you'll still only take half damage, which would normally only be the case if you succeeded. Spells that deal half damage when the target succeeds a dexterity saving throw include Fireball, Ice Storm, Call Lightning, Chain Lightning, Flame Strike, Guardian of Faith, Hunger of Hadar, Hellish Rebuke, and many more. So Evasion can cause you to take 0 damage from these spells, which is incredibly good. And since it's for dexterity saving throws, our high dexterity helps us succeed more often. Also, at level 7, you'll gain Stillness of Mind. This class action automatically removes Charmed or Frightened from you when you become afflicted with either of these conditions. This can be a real lifesaver when fighting against Slayer form Orin. And at level 8, you'll unlock your second feat, which we'll use on ability improvement and put both points into Wisdom, bringing it to 19. Now, if you don't have any other characters who need Auntie Ethel's hair, using it to bring Wisdom to 20 here would be perfect. If the hair is already spoken for, the Mirror of Loss can also be used to bring your Wisdom up. And if all else fails, you can also equip Khaled's Gift, which is an amulet that grants +1 Wisdom. At level 9, change your class at Withers. We're going to be starting as Monk again and following all the exact same steps as before, except once we reach level 6 Monk, we're going to multi-class 3 levels into Rogue. Now we're doing this in order to unlock Fast Hands from the Rogue subclass Thief. This grants us an additional bonus action, which gives us an extra Flurry of Blows every single turn, which is 2 extra attacks per turn. At level 10, we're going to level up Monk and get Evasion and Stillness of Mind back. At level 11, we're going to level up Monk again and get our ability improvement feat back, and once again put that into Wisdom. And finally, at level 12, we unlock Advanced Unarmored Movement, which causes difficult terrain to no longer slow you down, and you can jump an additional 20 feet while not wearing armor or using a shield. Now, this is a pretty massive amount of jump distance, which when combined with difficult terrain no longer slowing you down, you can really easily get into melee range as needed. You also unlock Key Resonation, which gives you an area of effect damaging action for when facing multiple enemies simultaneously. And next up, we're going to talk about equipment going by the acts. So in Act 1, let's talk equipment. Act 1, the first helm you're going to want to use is the Haste Helm. This helm grants momentum for 3 turns at the start of combat, which is 5 feet of movement per remaining duration of the effect, and it also grants +1 to dexterity saving throws. It can be found very early too. It is located within the chest at the center of the Blighted Village in Act 1. For your cloak, you're going to want to get the Deathstalker Mantle. This is also the best cloak for the build. It's also Dark Urge exclusive. You get this after a long rest where Alfira or Quill show up at your camp if you're playing as the Dark Urge. It's the best cloak in the game, so once you get it, you'll never need to replace it, but if you're not playing a Dark Urge origin, there actually aren't any Act 1 cloaks to go after. When it comes to armor, the first good chest armor is the Protecty Spark Squall. This is a rare chest armor armor that increases the wearer's defenses while they have lightning charges and grants a +1 bonus to their spell save DC. Since we'll be getting lightning charges from the sparkle hands, you'll be benefiting from the +1 AC and saving throws. This can be looted from a gilded chest at the end of the trapped bridge in the Grimforge. And the next armor you'll want to get after this in Act 1 is the Graceful Cloth. This is amazing for monks, granting +2 to dexterity and advantage on dexterity checks, as well as +1 to dexterity saving throws, and increasing your jump distance by 5 feet. This is really amazing for succeeding dexterity saving throws since we can negate all damage with evasion, and it helps out a lot with picking locks, pickpocketing, and other dexterity checks. And you can just purchase this right away from Lady Esther in the Rosimond Monastery Trail. When it comes to gloves, we talked about it briefly in the armor section, but you want to get the Sparkle Hands. These are rare gloves that grant lightning charges on unarmed attacks and provides advantage against metal constructs and armored foes while charged. And you can find these in a wooden chest in the Sunlit Wetlands. Later on in Act 1, you can replace the Sparkle Hands with the Gloves of Cinder and Sizzle. This adds 1d4 fire damage to your unarmed attacks, so when you have Infernal Fury on, you'll now deal 3 instances of 1d4 fire damage per unarmed attack, which is really crazy. And you can buy these as well off of Lady Esther at the Rosimond Monastery Trail. For your amulet, you'll want to get the Sentient Amulet, which is rare and can be found in Act 1 in a locked adamantine chest on the island with the broken structure near the Lava Elemental in the Grimforge. This amulet grants you Lesser Key Restoration, which restores 2 key points per short rest. This is great as it allows you to use more of your key using abilities per long rest. It also grants the spell Shatter, and you can even upgrade the amulet later in Act 3. You'll also want to pick up the Amulet of Misty Step. This is found in Priestess Gut's throne room, and of course, it does exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to cast Misty Step once per short rest, which can be very, very helpful for getting into position. And for your first ring, you're going to want to get Crusher's Ring. This is worn by Crusher in the Goblin camp, and you can slip the ring off his toe when he demands you kiss his feet or kill Crusher for it. Either way, you'll definitely want this ring because it grants a permanent 3 meters or 10 feet of movement speed. That's the equivalent of Longstrider on permanently, so it's actually really good, especially since you can also cast Longstrider on top of having this ring on. Also, since this character has high dexterity, you'll probably want to pick up Smuggler's Ring for stealth +2 and more importantly sleight of hand +2. This can be swapped to when pickpocketing, disarming traps, or lockpicking doors, or chests for that +2 bonus to your rolls. Also, if you're playing as a Gale Origin playthrough, you can use the Ring of Evasion, which allows you to use your reaction to succeed a dexterity saving throw when you would have failed it. This can be very useful with your evasion class feature, allowing you to guarantee a spell deals 0 damage to you. And you can get this ring by taking a long rest on a Gale Origin playthrough and have it gifted to you by Tara. For your second ring, Ring of Protection is incredible. It grants +1 to AC and +1 to saving throws. To get this ring, help Murkon from the Harpies and talk to Maul afterwards to get the quest to steal the Idol of Sylvanas. Once you oust Korga as a Shadow Druid collaborator or otherwise end the ritual, you can sneakily steal the idol without the druids slaughtering the tieflings. And once you do steal it, Maul will give you this ring as a reward. And for your boots, you'll want to go after the Boots of Genial Striding. These boots allow you to move over difficult terrain without being slowed. This is great since we deal damage in melee range, and you can purchase these off Blurg in the Myconid colony. You'll soon replace these boots with the Disintegrating Nightwalkers, which make you immune to Enwebbed, Entangled, and Snared, and you can't slip on grease or ice. And you can even use them to cast Misty Step once per short rest, so they're quite good. And to get these, you'll need to loot them or pickpocket them off of Nier in the Grimforge. And for your first and only weapon used as a open-hand monk, we have Coralon's Grace. This is perfect and sold by Auntie Ethel in Act 1. The staff grants Natural Pugilist, giving a +1 bonus to unarmed attack rolls and damage and unhampered resistance. While not wearing armor, you gain a +2 bonus to saving throws. Perfect for a monk, and you can get it very early. While you're shopping at Auntie Ethel, make sure once again to buy her Elixirs of Hill Giant Strength. You'll want a lot of these, so always buy them from her after each long rest to get a large supply. This is another reason we dumped Strength. It's easy to get your Strength very high through these Elixirs of Hill Giant Strength, and it will be critical once you acquire the Tavern Brawler feat. And for your ranged weapon, the Hunting Shortbow is perfect. This bow can be purchased off Dammon in Act 1, and it grants advantage against monstrosity type enemies and applies to your melee attack attacks too, not just your ranged attacks. Moving on to Act 2, you're going to want the Cloak of Protection. Again, if you aren't the Dark Urge, this cloak grants +1 to AC and +1 to saving throws and can be purchased from Quartermaster Tali at Last Light Inn. When it comes to gloves, you're going to want the Flawed Helldusk gloves. These make your unarmed attacks deal an additional 1d4 necrotic damage and possibly inflict bleeding. This is actually quite good if you get Bual's Benediction in Act 1, which means that whenever any of your party members attack a bleeding target, they will do so with advantage. So these gloves can really help your party out a lot. And they can be created by Dammon in the Last Light Inn if you give him Infernal Iron. However, I recommend picking up the Infernal Alloy from Stonemason Kith in the Grimforge, since you can turn that in over and over for the entire Flawed Helldusk set. For rings, you're definitely going to want to pick up the Callous Glow Ring. This causes you to deal an additional 2 points of radiant damage against creatures that are illuminated. This applies to each instance of the damage, so your Flurry of Blows will gain 2 radiant damage twice, making it 4 radiant damage per flurry, and this is very strong since we'll be dishing out many attacks each turn. For a ranged weapon, Darkfire Shortbow is amazing. This bow grants resistance to fire and cold damage and lets you cast haste once per long rest. And you can purchase this bow off of Dammon in the Last Light Inn stables. And for your boots, you'll definitely want to pick up the Boots of Uninhibited Kushigo. These are the best boots for Monk because they cause your unarmed attacks to deal additional damage equal to your Wisdom modifier. Since we have a lot of ability points in Wisdom for a number of our class features, this just fits the build perfectly and adds a nice amount of damage to all of our attacks. And these boots can be found on the corpse of Prelate Lyric, who is one of the Githyanki Honor Guard attacking the Emperor as you are leaving Act 2 for Act 3. Speaking of which, moving on to Act 3, we have the best helm for Monk, which is the Horns of the Berserker. This helm grants a +2 bonus to attack rolls against creatures that have already taken damage, and your unarmed attacks deal an additional 2 necrotic damage as long as you don't have full health. If you don't deal damage during a turn in combat, you will take 1d4 necrotic damage at the end of that turn. This is amazing since we attack so frequently that 2 necrotic damage will certainly add up, and this helm is sold by Entharl Danthlan in Worm's Crossing. And the best chest clothing is the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation. This grants 1d4 hit points when succeeding a saving throw against a spell, and the wearer can use their reaction to make an unarmed strike against any attacker that misses. It also grants +2 AC. This can be purchased off Roland or Lorokin's projection in Sorceress Sundries. And the best gloves you can find in Act 3 are the Gloves of Soul Catching. These cause your unarmed attacks to deal an additional 1d10 force damage, and once per turn on an unarmed hit, you can regain 10 hit points or gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the end of your next turn. It also grants +2 Constitution. And these gloves are a quest reward for the quest Save Hope. And finally, for your amulet, you'll want to get the very rare version of the Sentient Amulet. You'll need to have picked up the rare version found in Act 1 in that locked adamantine chest on the island near the lava elemental in the Grimforge, and this very rare version of the amulet grants you greater ki restoration, which restores 1 to 8 ki points per long rest. This is great as it allows you to use more of your ki using abilities per long rest. Now, to get this more powerful version, you'll need to complete the Help the Cursed Monk quest by refusing to take on the monk's madness and fight him instead. You'll also want to get Khalid's Gift. This amulet grants +1 wisdom and can be useful if you're 1 point away from 20 wisdom, and it can be found in a display case in Jaheira's basement. And next up, since this build relies heavily upon soul coins, here are the locations of all 19 of them. 5 in Act 1, 4 in Act 2, and 10 in Act 3. They last until long rest, so you have enough to last your entire playthrough. You can find 3 soul coins hidden within the Dank Crypt. The Dank Crypt can be found beneath the chapel entrance. Once inside, if you head right, you'll find one inside of a sarcophagus on the western side of the room, and there are tons of traps in that room, so you'll want to tread carefully, and even precast guidance so that you can perceive all of their locations. Once you enter the other room in the Dank Crypt, you can turn left immediately and find the room with the Book of the Dead Gods. Inside the sarcophagus furthest from the book, you can find the second soul coin in the Dank Crypt. And the third and final soul coin that you can find in the Dank Crypt is inside the sarcophagus that Withers comes out of, opened by pressing the button on the north side of the Dank Crypt. The next soul coin you'll find is actually in the Grove. Grove. At the top of a hill inside the Druid Grove is Nadira, and she carries one. She can be coerced or persuaded to give it to you if you save her from a bugbear assassin, or you can loot it off her corpse. Either way, she has the coin we're after. And the fifth and last soul coin in Act 1 is just sitting on the ground on top of the Toyhouze at the Risen Road, the very same building the so-called Paladins of Tyr are hiding out in. In Act 2, there are 4 soul coins. You'll find one hidden within the basement of the Wraithwind Toyhouze. You'll need to lockpick the DC 15 heavy oak doors and then push the button on the west side of the basement, which reveals a hidden room. Within that hidden room, on the table is our 6th soul coin. And 3 soul coins can be acquired from Lan Tarv, the bugbear trader in Moonrise Towers. If Karlach is in your party, which I'm assuming she is if you're after soul coins, then you can be given these for free for the cost of listening to the stories of each of the souls within the coins. Otherwise, you can just purchase them from him. Moving on to Act 3, there are 10 total coins that can be found. The first soul coin you'll run into is in the lower city in a building called Nortail's Hostel. Just enter and go up the stairs, and it's inside the very first chest at the top of the stairs. You can break it and steal it without much fuss from the residents. And the next set of 3 can all be found inside Pear Tree's home, located here on the map. The first one is inside his mailbox, found at the entrance to his home, and the other 2 are found in the basement within a strong box. Now, to get into the basement, you'll need to enter through the hatch beneath the traveler's chest. Once down there, you can open a door leading to a second room that has the strong box in it. A key for both the hatch and the strong box can be found on the first floor, otherwise you can just lockpick them both. And the next soul coin can be found in Philgrave's mansion. You can lockpick your way in using the west entrance. Once inside, go up the stairs and go through the locked door. Inside, you'll find a pile of viscera on a table, and inside of it, a soul coin. And for the last 5 soul coins in the game, all 5 can be found within the House of Hope, near where you encounter Harleep, and you can find them inside Raphael's safe by pressing the button underneath the portrait. Within the safe are the last 5 soul coins, and with that we have collected all 19 soul coins in Baldur's Gate 3. The Eldritch Blast Sorlock is one of the strongest builds in Baldur's Gate 3 for the extremely high damage output thanks to multiple sources of damage from a single Eldritch Blast cast and very powerful items to complement it. This build has insane crowd control by pairing Frightened with Prone, forcing enemies to skip their turns repeatedly. The build also becomes strong very early on and is perfect for a Tav thanks to the super high charisma. To get started, choose Warlock at level 1. Make sure to select Eldritch Blast as one of your cantrips because it will be the action we use most often. For subclass, you'll want to choose the Fiend subclass because the temporary health after slaying an enemy can be helpful early on. For spells, you'll want Hex and Hellish Rebuke. Hex is a damage rider, adding necrotic damage to attack rolls. Since Eldritch Blast is an attack roll, each blast will deal additional necrotic damage when used on a hexed target. We'll want to use our bonus action to apply Hex before casting Eldritch Blast on a target for this bonus necrotic damage. Hellish Rebuke can be used as a reaction when attacking to deal fire damage. This can be especially helpful to finish off wounded enemies during their turn. At level 2, you'll want to select your Eldritch Invocations. Agonizing Blast is the best for an Eldritch Blast build because it adds your Charisma modifier to the damage it deals, and Charisma is where we put the majority of our ability points. You'll also want to select Repelling Blast. This causes your Eldritch Blast to push your targets back up to 4.5 meters away from you. This is incredibly powerful to both keep enemies away from melee range where you would get disadvantage from threatened, but also gives you the option to instantly kill enemies by pushing them into chasms. At level 3, you'll want to choose Scorching Ray as your next spell to learn. This spell hurls 3 rays of fire, each dealing 2 to 12 fire damage. This spell is most powerful when used on a hexed target since each ray of fire will gain additional necrotic damage, making this your best single target burst damage spell at this level, which is absolutely amazing. For your Pact boon, you'll want to select Pact of the Chain. This gives you access to Find Familiar Imp. The Imp has invisibility, which can be used an unlimited number of times, which can be used outside of combat to initiate and surprise enemies, making them skip their turn, allowing you to sometimes end encounters before your enemies even have a chance to take a turn. At this level, you can also replace the spell you learned at level 1 with Cloud of Daggers. Cloud of Daggers deals 4d4 slashing damage in an area and is our best AoE option right now. At level 4, I'd recommend you get Misty Step as it will be helpful to get around. You also get access to your first feat, which we'll use on ability improvement to increase our charisma to 19. Getting Auntie Ethel's hair to increase our charisma to 20 would be ideal for this build. At level 5, you'll get access to new powerful spells. Choose Fireball and replace Misty Step with Hunger of Hadar. Both Fireball and Hunger of Hadar are powerful spells, and Misty Step can be found on a lot of equipment, so it is no longer needed. At level 5, you'll also get another Eldritch Invocation. This time choose Devil's Sight. This makes darkness much more powerful, allowing you to see through it, but your enemies cannot. This will also give your enemies disadvantage when they try to attack you while you sit in the darkness, and simultaneously give you advantage when you attack them. Also, your imp will now gain extra attack. At level 6, you'll want to go to Withers and change your class to Sorcerer. Sorcerers get proficiency in Constitution saving throws, which helps you keep concentration on spells you'll be using, like Darkness or Haste. For cantrips, I would choose Firebolt, Minor Illusion, Mage Hand, and Light. For spells, Shield and Enhanced Leap are perfect. For your subclass, you'll want to choose Draconic Bloodline. This gives you Draconic Resilience, increasing your base armor class to 13 when not wearing armor. Since Potent Robes is our best armor and it isn't armor, this fits perfectly. You'll also want to choose a Draconic Ancestry that matches which resistance you want. Fire is probably the most common damage type you'll run into, so any of the fire ancestries are a good choice, but gold is probably the best for the Disguise Self utility. At level 2 Sorcerer, make sure to choose Metamagic Twinned Spell and Extended Spell. This gives us the option to use Twinned Spell to cast haste on 2 enemies simultaneously. At level 3 Sorcerer, make sure to choose Metamagic Quickened Spell. This is the primary metamagic we'll be using to get an additional Eldritch Blast each turn. At level 4 Sorcerer, make sure to choose the Feat Ability Improvement and again put both points into Charisma. Our next level will go into Warlock, this time choosing the Great Old One subclass for Mortal Reminder. Mortal Reminder makes your critical hits cause frightened in an area of effect, which makes them unable to move and receive disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. This is extremely powerful for keeping enemies controlled. At level 2 Warlock, this time our Eldritch Invocations will be Agonizing Blast and Devil's Sight. Our next 2 levels will both go into Sorcerer to obtain Haste, Fireball, Counterspell, and Elemental Affinity Resistance. To activate this resistance, all you have to do is cast a Firebolt and it will last until long rest. Once we have 6 levels of Sorcerer, the last 4 levels will all go into Fighter. At level 1 Fighter, choose Defense Fighting Style, and at level 3, choose Champion for improved critical hit. Since we chose the Great Old One Warlock subclass, we'll want as much critical hit chance as possible. And our last level will be in Fighter to unlock our final feat, Spell Sniper, reducing our roll needed for a crit by 1. Moving on to the best in slot gear for this build, starting with the helm. The best helm for this build is Birthright. It increases your charisma by 2 to a max of 22. Since our build is relying so heavily on charisma, this is an obvious choice, and you can obtain this in Sorceress Sundries. If Roland is dead, Lorokan's projection sells it. If both Roland and Lorokan are alive, Roland will sell it, and if Roland is alive but Lorokan is dead, it can be pickpocketed from Roland in Ramazith's tower. The best cloak for this build is the Cloak of the Weave. This cloak grants a +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls and allows you to absorb elemental damage once per short rest and deal an additional 1d6 of that element on your next attack. You can obtain this from Hellsick at the Devil's Fee in Act 3. The best armor for this build is the Potent Robe. It grants Gregarious Caster, causing your cantrips to deal additional damage equal to your charisma modifier, and it grants Well Liked and Well Fortified, which grants temporary hit points equal to your charisma modifier at the beginning of the wearer's turn. To get this robe, you need to complete the quest Rescue the Tieflings in Act 2, and Alfira will give this to you. This involves breaking out the prisoners inside Moonrise Towers and making sure Alfira doesn't die in Act 1, or you won't be able to get these robes. When it comes to gloves, the second best gloves for this build are the Spellmite gloves. These gloves grant an additional 1d8 damage to a spell that requires an attack roll at the cost of a -5 penalty to that attack roll. The additional damage is incredible, and your attack rolls should almost never miss. You can obtain these gloves by completing the quest Find Dribbles the Clown from Lucretius, or a much easier way to get them is to just pickpocket them off Lucretius or loot them off Lucretius's corpse. The best gloves for this build, however, are Crater Flesh gloves. These gloves cause you to deal an additional 1d6 force damage whenever you score a critical hit, and this 1d6 force damage is a damage source, activating all of our damage riders again. However, it is currently bugged and is dealing much more than 1d6 force damage right now. Since we are stacking so much critical hit chance with this build, it fits perfectly. You can purchase these gloves from the Echo of Abazigal in the Murder Tribunal after you become an unholy assassin of Baal. The best boots for this build are Boots of Stormy Clamor. These boots inflict 2 turns of reverberation when the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature. When combined with Spine Shudder Amulet, which inflicts 2 turns of reverberation when the wearer deals damage with a ranged spell attack, you will very quickly reach 5 seconds of reverberation and knock your target prone. Now, in order for a creature to remove prone, they need to use movement, but but because of Mortal Reminder causing Frightened, which makes creatures unable to move, your target is actually unable to do anything but remain prone and thus skip their turn. You can purchase the Boots of Stormy Clamor from Omelum in the Myconid colony after completing the quest Help Omelum Investigate the Parasite. And of course, the best amulet for this build is the Spine Shudder Amulet, like we mentioned in the Boots section. This amulet inflicts 2 turns of Reverberation when the wearer deals damage with a ranged spell attack, and when combined with Boots of Stormy Clamor, which inflict 2 turns of Reverberation when the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature, you will very quickly reach 5 stacks of Reverberation and knock your target prone. And again, in order to remove prone, a target needs to use movement, but because of Mortal Reminder causing Frightened, which makes them unable to move, your target is unable to do anything but remain prone and skip their turn. This amulet can be looted from the Mimic in the bedroom on the upper floor of Moonrise Towers. When it comes to your rings, the first ring you're going to want to get is the Coruscation Ring. This ring inflicts 2 turns of Radiating Orb upon the target when the wearer deals spell damage while illuminated by a light source. Radiating Orb is powerful because it gives -1 to the target's attack rolls, and it also enables our next ring, Callous Glow Ring, to deal additional damage. The Coruscation Ring can be found very well hidden inside the cellar of Last Light Inn, inside of a heavy chest. And the second ring, Callous Glow Ring, causes the wearer to deal an additional 2 points of radiant damage against creatures that are illuminated. Since we have the Coruscation Ring causing radiating orbs and illuminating the area, we'll always get these 2 additional points of radiant damage. Just make sure to cast light on your character so that you're always within a light source whenever you use spells to activate Coruscation Ring. And finally, the Callous Glow Ring can be found inside of an opulent chest inside the vault near Balthazar inside the Gauntlet of Shar. When it comes to your melee weapons, the first weapon you'll want to seek out is the Spell Sparkler. This quarterstaff grants 2 lightning charges to the wielder each time they deal damage with a spell or cantrip. Since Eldritch Blast deals damage multiple times as you level up, you'll generate lots and lots of lightning charges with this staff. You are rewarded the Spell Sparkler by saving Counselor Floric from the burning building in Joaquin's Rest. Make sure when you first encounter Joaquin's Rest, you immediately go and save her, because if you walk by without doing that, this weapon will be lost forever. You'll eventually replace this quarterstaff for Knife of the Undermountain King, which is one of the best weapons for this build. This knife reduces the number you need to roll a critical hit by 1, which is perfect for our crit focus build. The Knife of the Undermountain King can be purchased from Ajak Nir Jira in Kresh Yelik. For your second melee weapon, you'll want to get Rhapsody. This grants a +1 bonus to attack rolls, damage, and spell save DC for every foe you slay, up to +3. And this can be found on the corpse of Cazador Zar. And for your ranged weapon slot, there's nothing better than the Dead Shot, and it's the best for this build because it reduces the number you need to roll a critical hit by 1, again supporting this highly crit focused build. So your final build will be 6 Sorcerer, 2 Warlock, 4 Fighter. 6 Sorcerer gives us lots of spell slots to convert into sorcery points so that we can use Eldritch Blast as a bonus action each turn by using Meta Magic Quickened spell. With Haste, Bloodlust Elixir, and Meta Magic Quickening, we can get up to 4 casts of Eldritch Blast per turn, and there are ways to get even more per turn, but I prefer this build more than them for maxing out critical strike chance and charisma and the incredible amount of spell slots you can convert into sorcery points. The Tavern Brawler Thrower is easily one of the strongest builds in the game thanks to Tavern Brawler, which adds twice your strength modifier to the damage and attack rolls when you throw. The extra damage being treated as a separate damage source leads to incredibly high damaging throws, especially when combined with the right equipment and a good throwing weapon. This build is also amazing because it's incredibly simple and very straightforward to put together. So if you're looking for an extremely powerful build that doesn't require multi-classing, this is it. To get started, start as a level 1 Barbarian. As a Barbarian, you have Unarmored Defense, which adds your Constitution modifier to your armor class in addition to your Dexterity modifier when not wearing armor. So make sure not to wear armor while playing as a Barbarian. You'll also be unable to rage when you wear armor, so you'll know if you're accidentally wearing armor. At level 3, choose Berserker. This gives you access to Frenzy. Frenzy upgrades your rage, granting Enrage to throw, which is a bonus action. So you can now start combat with a throw and Frenzy, and then each turn after get 2 throws. At level 4, you'll get a massive power spike with your first feat. Choose Tavern Brawler and put 1 point into strength, bringing it to 18. Tavern Brawler adds your strength modifier twice to the damage and attack rolls to your throws and is a key feat of this build. At level 5, you unlock extra attack. You can now throw twice on your first turn, use Frenzy as your bonus action, and then throw 3 times each turn after that. Between levels 6 and 7, you're going to want to change your class to Fighter. This change depends on when you reach Act 2 and acquire the Lightning Jabber, which we'll talk more about in the equipment section. But once you get this spear, that's the cue to go to Withers and change your class to Fighter. So at level 1 Fighter, choose Dueling Fighting Style. This actually adds +2 damage when you throw once you get dual wielding, because once you throw your weapon, the game actually registers you as having just a single weapon in your hand, and you'll deal this additional +2 damage on every single throw, so it's totally worth it. At level 3, choose Eldritch Knight. This gives you Weapon Bond, which ritually binds your weapon to your main hand, causing it to automatically return to you. Since Lightning Jabber doesn't do that automatically, make sure to bind it after each long rest. For cantrips, choose Light. Light is important because once we get Callous Glow Ring, we'll need to always have a light on our thrown weapon to activate the bonus damage. For your other cantrip, if this is your dialogue character, choose Friends, otherwise Minor Illusion. Minor Illusion can be used to group up enemies for big AoE damage using Nirulna later. For spells, choose Shield and Thunderwave. Shield is extremely powerful to gain 5 AC as a reaction, and since we really won't be using our spell slots almost at all, you'll get to activate this a lot. Thunderwave can be used situationally to knock enemies into chasms or to get rid of disadvantage from threatened, but honestly, you probably will never use it. For your expanded spell slot, choose Expeditious Retreat. This spell gives you dash immediately and as a bonus action on each of your turns until long rest. Make sure to use Expeditious Retreat after each long rest because you'll want to be able to use this bonus action dash immediately in combat as your bonus action each turn before throwing when wearing the Speedy Light feat to generate 3 lightning charges per turn. These lightning charges grant +1 to attack rolls and cause you to deal 1 additional lightning damage, and at 5 charges you'll deal an additional 1d8 lightning damage. At level 4, you can choose any spell and you'll get your first feat, and again choose Tavern Brawler and put that ability point into strength. At level 5, replace the spell you chose at level 4 and choose Longstrider if your party doesn't have it yet. If it does, you can choose False Life, Featherfall, Enhanced Leap, or Disguise Self depending on what your party needs. At level 6, replace Thunderwave with any of the spells mentioned in the level 5 section, and for your feat, choose Dual Wielder. You can now equip your stat stick. I prefer Knife of the Undermountain King, and you'll get +1 AC for doing so, in addition to the increased critical strike chance. Also, you'll now be getting that +2 damage to each throw thanks to the dueling fighting style. At level 7, you get to choose 2 more spells. Any of them are fine choices since we're very unlikely to be using them and we'll be replacing them later. At level 8, choose Misty Step. This is the final key spell of this build, which will help you get into position. Because the trajectory arc of throwing, positioning is more important than any other build, and Misty Step can help you get at the perfect angle to throw when you're in tricky areas. Replace one of the spells you chose at level 7, and if you haven't already, definitely get Disguise Self now. You'll need this for when you get Dwarven Thrower in Act 3 to activate that bonus damage. For your feat, choose Ability Improvement Strength. You should now have 20 or 22 strength, depending on if you acquired the Potion of Everlasting Vigor from Araj Abludra in Act 2, which grants +2 strength permanently. At level 9, change out the second spell you chose at level 7 for See Invisibility. This will be really helpful for Act 3. At level 10, you get a new cantrip, choose Friends or Minor Illusion, and a new spell which you can choose anything. At level 11, you get improved extra attack, allowing you 3 throws per turn. With Action Surge, you'll get 6 throws in a turn. Choose another spell and switch out the spell you chose at level 10 for one of the spells you're missing from the list we went through at level 9. And at level 12, again, switch out one of the spells you chose at level 11 and switch to one of the spells you're missing from the list we went through at level 9. You'll also get your final feat. I would choose Alert. This gives you a +5 bonus to initiative, and you can't be surprised. With this feat, you'll be able to take out multiple enemies before they even get a turn because you're going first, which can really help turn the tide in a battle, and your final build will be 12 Fighter. Nice and simple. Next up is best in slot gear. Warning, there are spoilers ahead. So the best helm for this build is Saravok's Horned Helmet. The number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking attacking is reduced by 1 while you wear this helm, and it also makes you immune to fear and other emotion-altering conditions. On top of that, it also grants dark vision up to 10 feet or 50 feet if you already have it. We mainly want this just for the critical strike chance, and you can loot this helm from Saravok Anchev in Act 3 within the Murder Tribunal. Since this is an Act 3 helmet, the Grimeskull helm is another great option from Act 1, granting Hunter's Mark as a bonus action, which is very powerful, and also it makes it so you cannot be critically hit, which is great. And you can loot that helm from Grime in the Adamantite Forge. And the best cloak for this build is the Deathstalker Mantle. This cloak grants invisibility for 2 turns after killing an enemy once per turn. This gives you advantage on your next attack roll coming out of invisibility. This is really the only cloak that adds offensive power to the build, and it's Dark Urge only, so if you're not playing Dark Urge, I would go with Cloak of Protection, which is a strong defensive option. You'll get the Deathstalker Mantle by long resting as the Dark Urge, and the Cloak of Protection can be purchased off Quartermaster Tali. The best armor for this build is the Helldusk Armor. Since there aren't any great offensive options, this is the strongest defensive option. You take 3 less damage from all sources, gain resistance to fire damage, and if you succeed a saving throw, the caster receives burning for 3 turns. This armor is dropped off Raphael in the House of Hope. The best gloves for this build are the Gloves of Uninhibited Kushigo. These gloves are perfect for a throwing build because they add 1d4 damage to throw attacks. You need to be careful when playing because in order to get these, you have to save Dareth Bone Cloak from the field of Bibberbang mushrooms in the Underdark. You can very easily miss these if he dies. And the best boots for this build are the Speedy Light Feet. When you dash wearing these boots, you gain 3 lightning charges. These lightning charges add +1 to attack rolls and cause you to deal an additional 1 damage. If you gain 5 charges, they are consumed the next time you deal damage, and you deal an additional 1d8 lightning damage. These boots are the main reason we get Expeditious Retreat to dash as a bonus action each turn to generate lightning charges. These are found inside a heavy chest in the cellar beneath the windmill in the Blighted Village in Act 1. And the best amulet for this build is the Amulet of Greater Health. This sets your Constitution score to 23 and gives you advantage on Constitution saving throws. The extra health is great, but also the advantage on Constitution saving throws is incredible to avoid losing concentration on Expeditious Retreat so that we're at no risk of losing our ability to generate lightning charges each turn. And you can get this from a pedestal in the House of Hope. The first ring you'll want to get is the Ring of Flinging. This ring is perfect for throwing because it grants plus 1d4 bonus to throw damage. This can be bought from Aaron in the Druid Grove, pretty much the first trader you see in the game. And the second ring you'll want is the Callous Glow Ring. This ring causes the wearer to deal an additional 2 points of radiant damage against creatures that are illuminated. The Callous Glow Ring is inside an opulent chest inside the vault near Balthazar in the Gauntlet of Shar, and make sure that you cast light on your weapon before you throw it in order to get these 2 points of radiant damage. Nyrulna already has light, so you don't need to cast it on that particular weapon. The first melee weapon you'll want to seek out is the Returning Pike, and the reason you want to get this as soon as possible is because it has Homing Weapon. This weapon will return to its owner when thrown, which allows it to be used over and over without running out of weapons to throw. And you can purchase this from Grat the Trader in the Goblin Camp. You can go there almost immediately if you have Disguise Self Drow, since goblins are filled with awe when they see Drow, and make sure to get the waypoint while you're there. The second weapon you'll want to seek out is the Lightning Jabber. The Lightning Jabber deals an additional 1d4 lightning damage when thrown at a target, which is considered yet another separate damage source, making this one of the best throwing weapons really in the entire game. And you can get this off the Kuatoa Chieftain right outside the Grand Mausoleum in Act 2. He's a level 7 surrounded by a lot of Kuatoa, so don't rush there too soon if you're too low level. And third, the Dwarven Thrower. The Dwarven Thrower has Homing Weapon returning when thrown and deals an additional 1d8 bludgeoning damage if a dwarf is the one throwing it. So use Disguise Self when you use this weapon unless you're already a dwarf. It deals up to 2d8 additional bludgeoning damage if the target is large, huge, or gargantuan, which makes this your best weapon against those enemy types. You can purchase this off Ferg Droger in Rivington in Act 3 as long as Shadowheart isn't an active party member. Fourth, and in most cases your best weapon for this build, is Nyrulna. Nyrulna deals 3d4 thunder damage and an explosion when thrown, and it has Glowing, which shines a light in a radius of 6 meters, which pairs perfectly with the Callous Glow Ring, and the thunder damage is considered a separate damage source. The AoE from Nyrulna makes this weapon deal the most damage out of all of your options if there are enemies close to each other, but if you have a lot of melee party members, you're going to be better off using the Dwarven Thrower so that you don't inflict too much damage on your own party members. throwers. Also, really importantly, in combat, make sure not to throw Nirulna and then throw Dwarven Thrower immediately after. This will unequip your offhand weapon and you'll lose the bonus damage from dueling fighting style and the stats from the weapon, which would be in our case critical strike chance. So make sure to either choose one or the other and stick to it throughout combat. I know it's very tempting to use Dwarven Thrower for single target and then switch to Nirulna for AoE, but don't do that within combat. If you're going to switch, do it manually outside of combat. Don't let one of the throwing weapons replace your offhand stat stick. And speaking of offhand stat stick, the best offhand weapon for this build is the Knife of the Undermountain King. This knife reduces the number you need to roll a critical hit by 1, which is very strong, and the Knife of the Undermountain King can be purchased from Ajak near Jira in Kresh Yelik. You could also use Bloodthirst, since this Knife of the Undermountain King is used in so many builds, and I would say the two are pretty interchangeable. For your ranged weapon slot, the Dead Shot is the best for this build because it reduces the number you need to roll a critical hit by 1, which is very strong. And those are the best in slot items. This build is great to run because of its simplicity and how incredibly strong it is. And another great reason to run a throwing build is because of the interaction with Soul Branding. Soul Branding is a bonus action only available to Minthara, which increases the target's movement speed by 1.5 meters, and its next attack deals an additional 2d4 plus 1 fire damage. This condition ends upon landing a successful attack, otherwise it lasts 3 turns. However, when used on a thrower, Soul Branding does not end after a throw, and the throw gets the bonus fire damage each time. So Soul Branding is really great for throwers, another reason to possibly choose the build, or another reason to make sure you recruit Minthara if you're going to go a throwing build. Now overall, this build is one of the most powerful in Baldur's Gate 3 and will certainly make Tactician or even Honored difficulty seem easy because of how incredibly strong it is. The Arcane Archer is one of the most underrated builds in Baldur's Gate 3, but it is actually one of the most powerful subclasses in the entire game, if not the most powerful. With Banishing Shot unlocked at level 3, you can have up to 4 targets banished while just level 3, and that number only goes higher as you level up. And if you've played Honor difficulty, you know how big of a difference making an enemy skip their turn can be. Not only that, but the Arcane Archer has other amazing arcane arrows such as Seeking Arrow, which always hits its target like Magic Missile, Piercing Arrow for linear AoE, and Shadow Arrow to blind all your enemies, granting your team advantage on their attack rolls. And if all that wasn't enough, the Arcane Archer has a secret interaction that changes everything, which we'll go over in the leveling section. To get started, choose Fighter at level 1. You'll gain Second Wind and a fighting style. Second Wind is a great use of a bonus action, healing us for 1d10 plus your fighter level. It's great because we can use it during our first turn of combat to activate Brood Mother's Revenge, granting us 1d6 poison damage to all our attacks for 3 turns. For our fighting style, we'll want Archery. This grants +2 to our attack rolls with our ranged weapons. For your race, High Half Elf is ideal for Fey Ancestry so that we cannot be magically put to sleep, as well as Dark Vision, letting us see up to 40 feet in the dark. We also gain a cantrip for being High Elf, and I like Minor Illusion to group enemies up before combat. This helps a lot with generating arcane acuity with an arrow of many targets. This is what you'll want for ability points. We want primarily Dexterity and Intelligence. Dexterity will be important since we'll be making ranged attacks, and our Intelligence is our spellcasting ability modifier as an Arcane Archer, so we want that to be high as well. You can completely dump Strength if you wanted to, since we'll be using the Club of Hill Giant Strength, but I like having some strength until then. At level 2, we'll unlock Action Surge. This grants us another action, and it's amazing because it refreshes on short rest, just like our Arcane Arrows. Then at level 3, we gain access to our subclass, Arcane Archer. For your cantrip, choose Guidance. This is a must-have for any party traversing Faerun. If you already have it in your party, then choose Light. At level 3, we also gain 3 arcane shots. You'll want Banishing Arrow. You'll be using this as your primary means to CC enemies. It banishes them for 2 turns. You'll also want to get Shadow Arrow and Piercing Arrow. Shadow Arrow is another great form of CC, blinding a target, which grants advantage on attack rolls against them, and they have disadvantage on their attack rolls, and the affected creature's range of attacks and spells is reduced to 3 meters or 10 feet, which is the perfect crowd control for a target you'd like to be killing. So banish a target you'll kill later and use Shadow Arrow on the current target. Piercing Arrow is great if there are enemies threatening you, allowing you to get guaranteed damage in a scenario where another ranged character would probably just miss. At level 4, you'll unlock your first feat. Choose Sharpshooter. This causes your ranged weapon attacks to not be penalized when attacking a target on high high ground. You also gain a toggleable ability granting your ranged weapon attacks with weapons you are proficient with to have a -5 to their attack roll, but deal an additional 10 damage. Keep this on always unless your chance to hit falls below 70%. It's worth mentioning that Sharpshooter's bonus damage is not added to damage with seeking or piercing arrows because they are not considered weapon attacks, because they always hit, but the damage is added to other arcane arrows. So keep in mind that this also means that seeking or piercing arrow do not trigger the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. And at level 5, we unlock extra attack. This lets us make 2 attacks per action. With Action Surge, we are now able to fire 4 arrows per turn. This means in a single turn, we can now banish 4 targets. Absolutely the best crowd control in the game at level 5. Even if you don't plan on staying an Arcane Archer all the way to level 12, this early game power is unmatched. At level 6, we gain our second feat. This time choose Ability Improvement and put 2 points into Dexterity. This will bring it up to 18. Dexterity affects your acrobatics, sleight of hand, and stealth skills, as well as your attack rolls for ranged weapons and finesse weapons. It also affects your initiative and armor class. It's very important for Arcane Archers since we'll pretty much only be making ranged attacks, and since we're the party's crowd control, we should make sure to go first before the enemy can attack us. At level 7, Arcane Archers gain insane new features. The first is Curving Shot. When you miss with any magical ranged attack, use a bonus action to attack the next closest target with the same attack. This is amazing because if you miss with something like Banishing Arrow, you can use your bonus action to basically succeed and banish a different target. Now, since Arcane Archers get so many attacks, you can just try again on your initial target as well and have 2 targets banished without wasting one of your attacks. Curving Shot also has a secret interaction. If you have Soul Branding active, the damage you deal from the curved shot will deal the bonus fire damage, but Soul Branding won't be consumed, letting you double dip and gain bonus fire damage on your next attack too, which is pretty neat. At level 7, you will also gain access to Magic Arrow. All of your ranged attacks are considered magical to overcome resistance. You also gain 3 additional arcane arrows, bringing your total count to 7. You can now also choose another arcane shot. I like to choose Seeking Arrow. This is a lot of fun because you can use it in 3 situations very effectively. Number 1, there's a low health enemy that you desperately need to kill this round, for example, Answer right before he's about to explode and kill your whole party, or if there's a target that you can't get a good line of sight on to shoot an arrow at, the Seeking Arrow can move like a magic missile going straight up or around corners to reach its target, or a single enemy in melee range of you causing you to become threatened and gain disadvantage on your attack rolls. Well, just use a Seeking Arrow to get rid of him, guaranteed. At level 8, you're going to gain your third feat. I'd choose Ability Improvement Dexterity to bring our dexterity up to 20. This high dexterity is really great because we'll want to eventually get the Armor of Agility. It has 17 AC and still lets us add our full dexterity modifier to our armor class, which leads to some ridiculous AC late game. Before you get Armor of Agility, the Yuan Ti Scale Mail also works the same exact way. You can get that off Tally and Last Light In. At level 9, you'll unlock Indomitable. This passive feature lets you reroll a failed saving throw. It is a free action and therefore does not consume your reaction when used. It's actually pretty amazing since it only activates if you fail a saving throw, so it's there when you need it, and there are so many spells and abilities that can cause you to roll a saving throw. At level 10, you'll unlock 3 additional arcane arrows, bringing your total count to 10, which all refresh on a short rest. You can also learn 1 more arcane shot, and I choose Grasping Arrow. Now, I'd probably never use it considering the other amazing options, but if the scenario ever arises where you need to shoot and then run, this could potentially be very useful. At level 11, we gain a massive power spike with improved extra attack, granting us 3 attacks per action. This makes us a crowd control monster, allowing us to banish up to 6 targets a turn with Action Surge, or even 9 with haste. Absolutely unheard of crowd control. And you don't always need to use Banishing Arrow. Shadow Arrow for Blind is just as good, maybe even better, depending on your situation. And finally, at level 12, we gain our final feat. I'd choose Ability Improvement Intelligence. Since our spellcasting ability modifier is Intelligence, we want it to be as high as possible. The spell save DC for our arcane shots is 8 plus our proficiency modifier plus our intelligence modifier, so increasing intelligence helps us banish, blind, or otherwise CC our targets with more success. And next up are the best pieces of equipment for our Arcane Archer. The idea behind these equipment choices is that we're going to try to be our party's crowd control, both by using crowd controlling arcane arrows, but also through our regular attacks. We're going to be applying Reverberation, Prone, Frightened, and gaining Arcane Acuity to make sure our arcane arrows succeed. So the best helmet for our Arcane Archer is the Helmet of Arcane Acuity. Whenever you deal damage with a weapon attack, you'll gain Arcane Acuity for 2 turns, which gives you +1 to spell attack rolls and spell DC for each remaining turn. This is amazing for our Arcane Archer because we can use an arrow of many targets to get max stacks of Arcane Acuity and then nearly guarantee our banishing arrow successfully banishes whatever we choose. You can find the Helmet of Arcane Acuity in Act 2 beneath the Mason's Guild. The best cloak for our Arcane Archer is the Thunderskin Cloak. There are a lot of great defensive options for cloaks, but this cloak works best for our build. Thunderskin Cloak causes creatures who deal damage to the wearer, who also have reverberation, to become dazed if they fail a Constitution saving throw. Dazed is amazing for this build because it gives disadvantage on Wisdom saving throws, which makes our Shadow Arrow have a higher chance of succeeding. Dazed also causes afflicted entities to become unable to take reactions and lose the dexterity bonus to their armor class, which is also great. And you can easily acquire the Thunderskin Cloak by purchasing it from Raja Bledra in the main floor of Moonrise Towers. The best armor for our Arcane Archer is the Yuan-Ti Scale Mail until we get the Armor of Agility. Both of these armors let us add our full dexterity modifier to our armor class and grants +1 to initiative rolls, the Yuan-Ti. Since we're a fighter, we could wear heavy armor, but your AC should be about the same as wearing heavy armor in Act 1, but compared to Yuan-Ti, you'll also get that +1 initiative compared to something like the Adamantine Splint armor. You can easily acquire the Yuan-Ti Scale Mail from Tally in Last Light Inn, and the Armor of Agility from Damon in Act 3. The best gloves for our Arcane Archer are the Gloves of Belligerent Skies. These gloves grant Thunderous Conversion. When the wearer deals thunder, lightning, or radiant damage, inflict 2 turns of reverberation upon the targets. Reverberation causes the affected entity to have a -1 penalty to Strength, Dexterity, and Constitution saving throws per remaining turn. When the entity has 5 or more turns of reverberation, it takes 1d4 thunder damage and possibly falls prone. Prone is great for our build because it makes the affected entity have disadvantage on Strength and Dexterity saving throws. This means our Grasping Arrow, Seeking Arrow's Fairy Fire, and Piercing Arrow all have a higher chance of succeeding once the target becomes prone. Also, attacks against a prone creature have advantage if they're made within 10 feet of the creature, so make sure to get closer to prone targets if you want that advantage. Creatures that have been knocked prone through reverberation also occasionally skip their turn, which is a huge added benefit. And you can find these gloves in Crush Yellick and an elegant chest in the Inquisitor's Chamber along the southern wall of the room on the western side. And the best boots for our Arcane Archer are the Boots of Stormy Clamor. These boots cause 2 turns of reverberation when the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature. We have so many conditions that we're applying as an Arcane Archer, such as Dazed, Prone, Frightened, Fairy Fire, Entangled, Banish, and more, that you'll definitely apply enough reverberation during an enemy's turn to send them prone and end their turn prematurely, which is extremely powerful. Also, reverberation is currently bugged, and when a creature that starts their turn prone caused by reverberation, they will sometimes skip their turn entirely. You can find these boots on Omelum. And the best amulet for our Arcane Archer is the Brood Mother's Revenge. Whenever we are healed, we deal an additional 1d6 poison damage with our weapon for 3 turns. Since we can use Second Wind as a bonus action, I recommend starting the round by using it to gain that poison damage. And you can find this amulet on Korga. And the best ring for our Arcane Archer is the Ring of Spiteful Thunder. When we deal thunder damage to a reverberating creature, it becomes dazed unless it succeeds a Constitution saving throw. Dazed gives disadvantage on Wisdom saving throws, which means our Shadow Arrow will succeed more often, and the target can't take reactions, and they lose the Dexterity bonus to their armor class. So it fits our reverberation build perfectly. And this ring can be purchased from Roa Moonglow, located on the main floor of Moonrise Towers. The other ring for our Arcane Archer is the Ring of Absolute Force. Whenever we deal thunder damage, we deal 1 additional thunder damage. And while there are better rings that could add more damage, this ring fits our build perfectly, allowing us to save those better rings for our 3 other party members that are going to be more damage focused. This ring works even if you do not bear the Absolutes brand. And the best weapon for our Arcane Archer is the Club of Hill Giant Strength. Since we're primarily focused on dexterity and intelligence, we need to give up some strength. This club lets us sit at 19 strength, which helps with jumping across chasms, succeeding athletics checks, and letting us carry items without worrying about becoming encumbered. Even though we aren't using the Titan String bow, it's nice to not have too low of strength. More importantly than the club though, we need to make sure we have the Drake Throat Glaive on a party member. At the start of each day, we need to use Draconic Elemental Weapon on our bow to give it thunder damage. This enables the entire reverberation side of the build, so it is a critical piece of equipment. The club can be found at the top of the Arcane Tower, and the glaive save can be purchased from Roa in Moonrise Towers. And the best offhand for our Arcane Archer is Kethric's Shield because it grants +2 AC and a +1 bonus to spell save DC. Since we're going to be causing a lot of saving throws with our arcane arrows, we want to increase our spell save DC as much as possible, and AC is always great too. And the best ranged weapon for our Arcane Archer is the Bow of the Banshee, not the Titan String Bow. Since Titan String Bow's strength comes from your strength modifier being added an additional time when using special arrows, but not arcane arrows, Bow of the Banshee seems like the better choice. Instead of the bonus damage, we gain the ability to cause Frightened. When paired with Prone from Reverberation, enemies will skip their turn entirely. So when an enemy isn't banished or blinded, they'll probably be prone and frightened. We trade bonus damage for bonus crowd control, which is really the whole point of this Arcane Archer build, to completely crowd control all of your enemies for the entire fight while your other party members deal massive damage to them. This is what I believe the Arcane Archer excels at, and why I chose to lean into their crowd control strengths. And that's it for this video, but before you head out, don't forget to check out today's sponsor, War Thunder, and get ready to blow up some tanks. You can play for free right now on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile. Just use the links in the pinned comment or video description. If you're new to War Thunder or coming back after at least a 6-month break, you'll get a huge bonus pack on PC or consoles. This includes premium vehicles, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account time. This offer is available for a limited time, so don't wait, click the link now.